2, 1.
3, 2, 1, we're ready. I'd like to welcome you to our meeting this evening. If you do have cell phones, I'd ask at this time for you to silence them so that we do not have even the noise of it vibrating and distracting us. It is picked up. Most people don't realize a lot of times it's picked up by these microphones that we have here, and also we are being videotaped. Tonight we have with us Reverend Dr. Bob Kretz, who is the pastor at Hope Mills United Methodist Church, to do our invocation, and that will be followed by our Pledge of Allegiance. We ask if you please all rise and prepare for the invocation followed by the pledge.
Thank you, Mayor. A verse of scripture for us tonight from Psalm 46, verse 10. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. Let's pray. Lord, we humble ourselves before you tonight and recognize that you are God of all the earth. We gather tonight to be about the business of our community. We thank you for our mayor, for our commissioners, for our law enforcement officers, first responders, our administrative staff. We pray blessings on them and on the proceedings tonight. Please give our leaders wisdom as they decide on each of these issues, and Lord, give us grace that we may be united together as one community. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Are there any additions or deletions to our agenda that is before you?
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
like
sir.
to add a closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A6 to discuss personnel matters.
And that will be
After official comments, again?
after official comments. Is there any other additions or deletions to our agenda?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to see us have a discussion under new business after the presentation of Assistant County Manager Tracy Jackson's.
Okay, so discussion under new business in reference to Parks and Recreation. Is there any other additions or deletions to our agenda? If not, we've added one item under new business, and we've added one item at the end as a closed session. All those in favor of our agenda, if you will, do I need a motion to approve?
So moved.
Have a motion. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed. This evening we have with us our Assistant Cumberland County Manager. I want you to know, first of all, that we have County Manager Amy Cannon, and then underneath Amy Cannon is Mr. Tracy Jackson. And when we were involved in looking at a Parks and Rec merger between Hope Mills and Cumberland County, the route you go is through the county manager and county commissioners. So it would be only appropriate that if we're going to talk any type of merger, any type of looking at any type of program, that you talk to those that are at the top, those that are in charge. So our Assistant Cumberland County Manager tonight, Mr. Tracy Jackson, has come before us. He's got some information, and then my assumption is that you'll answer questions of the board if they ask questions. So at this time, I'll turn the mic over to Mr. Jackson. And
good evening, Mayor and Commissioners, and Ms. Adams. Thank you for inviting me here tonight. Certainly appreciate the opportunity to discuss this further with you. I know there's a lot of interest in this topic. I'll start by saying that your town manager approached the county manager and asked for details about changing to the Parks and Rec district. As you know, we have a collaborative effort with the city of Fayetteville and Cumberland County as a partner, where the city provides the operations and maintenance and also executes projects that are out there for the small towns and communities outside the city of Fayetteville. So that has been a successful program over the years. I think it's one that's been a model in North Carolina and something that we all are very proud of. It does offer a lot of different opportunities to folks And it does come with some unique challenges, just like all partnerships. I think that communication is key. I think when you look at providing services through someone else, you always have to have a good, strong partnership there and good communication. And that's something that we work routinely to improve upon. We have met and discussed the town's current Parks and Rec offerings and the current projects and needs in the district. Ms. Adams was very good to describe all those needs. It does sound like you have a lot of good offerings and a lot of great events that you have here in your community, and I know that you're very proud of those. We discussed the possibility of this change with the City County Parks and Rec Director, Mike Gibson. He's not here tonight, but I'll serve in his stead and try to fill in the blanks where I can. And if we need to get some additional answers, we'll be glad to get those to you after the fact. So just to kind of recap, obviously you have some very robust programs, some that are probably very unique to the other small towns throughout Cumberland County and also to the city of Fayetteville. There could be a loss of control and reduction of offerings if the town changes to the county district. This is something to keep in mind. Like everything, there's pros and cons. So you need to understand the good and the bad that comes with this. Much of the district tax goes right now to provide maintenance and operations costs for current town and community parks in the district. Now, if there's money left over at the end, that's put into a fund balance. Now, undoubtedly, you've heard that over the years that fund balance has grown, and there were a few $1 million in that fund balance at one point. Now, that has been whittled away over time, and what you've seen out in the community and with the towns is the results of that. The splash pads and some of the other offerings, maybe a new park in a community or a town. So those are the types of things that we've been fortunate to be able to do with that district funding and with that fund balance. But again, that was for specialized projects specifically requested by the towns. That all goes into one pot and everybody submits their requests and their needs. And some things may be funded, some may not, depending on the amount of money that's in the fund balance. So that fund balance has been brought down. It's at probably around $200,000 right now. We're in the process of a new budget proposal and looking at all the different towns and their needs as we go forward. So, and like I said, keep in mind that the district tax in general goes to provide the operations and maintenance, which is a big project in and of itself to cover all those different rec centers and all the different staff, all the different maintenance needs and upkeep for all the parks and all these different facilities. So with that, that's just kind of a brief overview of what we have here in the county that we're fortunate to have. And I'll be glad to try to answer any questions if you may have some things for me tonight.
Okay, I'll open it up to the commissioners. Someone want to start, and we'll give an opportunity for each commissioner to ask a question if they want to. So anybody want to start? Yes, ma'am.
I've had several people mention the fact that Fayetteville had gotten a big grant and a lot of things that they wanted to do and all. Now, will some of this come to the county also?
So typically, the grants that are pursued are the state grants. There's one called PARTIF. So that is a grant from the State Parks and Recreation Commission. Usually it's a matching grant. I know that with the town of Linden in that project, there were some matching funds. But typically what I've seen here recently with the desire to move along quickly with some of these projects, they did not pursue grants and they just went ahead and moved forward with a mass number of projects and try to find savings in doing those all at one time. So for example, if they can do 5 splash pads and bring in a contractor that can provide some economies of scale, they'll do that and hopefully realize some savings, that way. But sometimes there are opportunities for grants, yes.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jackson, thank you for coming tonight.
Yes, sir.
My first question is, if the town merges with the county, how soon would we be eligible to get funding for things like a splash pad or the golf course property that we have to be developed soon, we hope. How soon would we be eligible for that, and at what percentage of the money would come back to that?
Well, that's a good question. And as far as moving into or under that umbrella for City Parks and Rec, I'd have to refer that to Michael Gibson. It's early enough right now that I suspect it would involve some discussions with Michael directly and with some of our city management, and then, of course, on up to the Board of Commissioners. Earmarking money, I couldn't tell you for sure that would happen unless the process changed. The way the process is set up now is it's one large pot, like I mentioned, that everybody submits into. They submit the request, and then it's decided based on need what happens next in terms of funding the projects. So that's the current way that the system is set up. And it is, honestly, and has been designed more so for the smaller towns and those needs than it has with the consideration of a bigger municipality.
My second question is, you have an alliance with any particular youth league like in baseball? Do you participate in Little League, Dixie Youth, Cal Ripken, or any of those?
I'm not familiar with the actual leagues that participate. I know from some recent discussions, Dixie League is not part of that. And there has been various folks in the community that are interested in seeing some different types of leagues involved. Michael Gibson will be the first one to tell you that their programs, they try to be as inclusive as possible. They are, of course, running into some challenges with different types of travel leagues and that type of thing, and having, folks that can participate and play. It's always a challenge, I think, when you have open programs, things that are open to the community.
Okay, but they're not in a program right now.
They just have their programs that are set up through City Parks and Rec, is my understanding.
Well, thank you. I had to quit talking.
Okay. Commissioner Larson?
I appreciate you coming out.
Yes, ma'am.
I know that we are collecting information from all different avenues, just to see what is going to be the best direction for the town to go in. I did have the opportunity to read the Mayor's Coalition meeting minutes from the year 15, 16, 17, and 18, and watch some pretty extraordinary things happen to their parks. Splash pads, new rec centers, new multi-purpose fields, senior centers, over that 5-year period. That's where we really, for our town, we really haven't done any capital improvement in Parks and Rec area. We have a great staff. So I appreciate you coming out and giving the information. I have been looking at the other towns to see what they've been bringing in, so.
He's taking him a cough drop. I'm sorry.
Thank you, though.
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Bellflower?
Oh, yes. As always, Tracy, thanks for taking the time to come
Yes, sir.
tonight.
Thank you.
I got a few things.
Okay.
Now, when we talk about the big pot, let me make sure that I got it clear. The big pot includes the tax, and does it include the fee schedule money that the town collects for programs?
Some of the towns do collect, and for example, if it's a shelter rental, and they're responsible for that and scheduling that, and then collecting that. So there are some other fees. I would say for some of these smaller towns, it's not a huge sum of money, but that is something that's a potential.
Well, and that's why, I understand the tax, I got
Sure.
that.
Right.
But the fee schedule is collected by the municipalities for different uses. So does all that money go to the big pot, or does some of it stay with the municipality, or How was that split up?
Right. So in my discussions with Michael and the different towns, of course, we go out and we speak with the folks on a regular basis. My understanding from the way this is structured, and again, this is in the small towns. We're talking 100 or less people in some of these towns. I mean, it's small. So it's not a whole lot of money that's being discussed. I don't think in the scheme of the city, county parks and rec, it's something that Michael and his staff are going to keep up with. So I think when you start talking about a Hope Mills, it's a different scale. And that's where I think we need to sit down if you're seriously interested about moving forward and talking about the current way that this is structured, and give Michael a chance to kind of weigh in on the possibilities of what may or may not be when it comes to fees and revenues and that type of thing.
Well, that's the reason I asked.
Sure. That's a good question.
It's because, I mean, if we are looking at going forward, then the two revenue streams to support the Parks and Rec program, of course, is the recreational tax, and then it's the fee schedule that we have if we're going forward. And then the other question is the senior services that we have, the programs here, but is that excluded or included?
Well, and I'm not familiar with your senior services in terms of the actual programs that are offered. So City Parks and Rec does have some programs, obviously, and they also are building some new senior centers. So, if it's something that could be rolled up into that, and offerings that are already there that are similar to what they provide now, I don't see where that would be an issue. If they're very unique and very different, then that may or may not be possible. But again, I think it's worth the discussion, just to kind of fine tune what it is you're looking for.
With that discussion, could you kind of tell me what's in and out with joining Fayetteville, Cumberland County as far as programs go? What would be in, if we were to rejoin or to join the program, what would be included and what wouldn't be included?
Right. I'm not prepared to answer that question tonight. If we could get a list that's an exact comparison, we could go to Michael Gibson and see what they currently offer, what they don't. And even if it's not currently offered, it may not be a stretch. It may be very similar, or it may be possible to offer that. But again, without looking at it and apples to apples, I wouldn't stand here tonight and try to tell you what would be in or out.
Okay. Well, that's an important question because, yes. I mean, we have a lot of unique needs here in Hope Mills, and that serves a variety of folks from 9 months to 99 years old.
Right.
And I want to make sure that it's inclusive. That's the reason why I was asking that. Not only our sports programs, but our other programs that we do as well, like special town events and parades and those kinds of things. I don't believe they would be included. Based on conversations, parades would not be part of the Parks and Rec program. Right. Okay. Okay, Mayor.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem.
I'll speak again. Mr. Jackson, I appreciate you coming tonight too. I don't consider Hope Mills as a little town or a small town.
And I did not mean to imply that.
No, I know you didn't, but I'm speaking,
sure.
For myself and some of the people I've talked to.
Yes.
To me, ever since I've been here, Hope Mills has been known for its sports, its recreation, its parks and rec. That's why a lot of people came here. I'm proud of it. We're growing, and I love Hope Mills. I love the people. I love everything we're doing, and I just hate to see us merge in with Fayetteville. I think there's something that we can do as a town, working together, and keep our parks and rec in Hope Mills. I appreciate you coming, but that's my feeling, and that's what it's going to be from here on out.
Well, yes, ma'am. And I'm not here to take a position one way or the other. It's truly the Board of Commissioners' decision. So I'm just here to present information and try to answer questions. And
I appreciate that, and I know that, and I probably put you on a little spot right there, but I just,
no, that's fine.
I want to explain where I'm coming from. And
that's fine. I understand, and it would be a next step up or a next level up, honestly, if a town this size was to join in. into the Parks and Rec District. I mean, I think you see obviously some opportunities to interact with the city of Fayetteville and some of its offerings. But the other side of that is what would the impact be on the small towns and the communities that also have needs when you have limited resources?
Yeah, I understand that. And also with the senior programs, the ones we have here, we'd be more like a satellite station for the Parks and Rec in Cumberland County. They have their own senior programs, and they have some good ones. And they're under Mid-Carolina Council of Aging, and so we would fall under that also. So they would have a big impact on the seniors. But thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Jackson, as you know, we're waiting on the comprehensive plan to be finalized. We're waiting for we had a workshop the other night, and we think we know where we're going with it, but still not finalized. But I also mentioned looking at all of our options is the prudent thing to do and keep an open mind. It does concern me that more county residents utilize many of our programs than our own town residents. When you guys prioritize your funding, do you look at utilization of the county residents? When you look at overall utilization of programs, so if we have 200 in our senior programs, does that make a difference when you look at Eastover and it might have 25? If you're doing funding, does that take any precedence on a priority list?
Not right now. And as I said, I mean, if a town the size of Hope Mills was to join with the expectations that you probably have in terms of programming, it would be a change, and it would be something we'd have to seriously discuss in terms of not only what it would impact in terms of your expectations, but also in terms of the other small towns and communities and their expectations.
I don't know how serious the board is, but I myself wouldn't support anything without having something like a 10-year interlocutory agreement with very specific guidelines about what you guys would handle and what we'd be responsible for on an a la carte basis. It had to be very much in detail, much more than what we're getting here tonight, and before even making a decision of that magnitude. But again, we're still waiting on a comprehensive plan to come back, and appreciate your time tonight.
Yes, sir.
And appreciate all the county does do for us. And no, I don't know if it's the right thing or not. That's up to the majority of the boards who represent all the citizens. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Mayor, I have a follow-up.
Yes, sir.
Tracy, you were talking about priorities. Of all the municipalities that's in the program now, how are those priorities established and approved with all the other municipalities? What's the process?
The process, right. The process is that we go out to each of the towns and we have a face-to-face. We let them know that we're soliciting or taking projects for a specific budget year. They submit those, and then we ask them to rank those. Okay. Now, we'll send those to Michael Gibson for estimates. He and his staff will do all the legwork in determining the cost. So at the end of the day, we sit down and we look at all the projects that have been submitted, the cost, and then from there, we split out. We try to be fair as much as we can with the different projects. And each town's unique. I mean, Hope Mills is unique. Everybody has different needs and different wants. So I think the situation that we found ourselves in was very unusual. You don't typically find yourself with a fund balance, and of course you'll always have lots of needs out there. The challenge now going forward will be not only maintaining these expanded amenities in all these different places, but also trying to figure out what's next. I mean, what do you do and how do you fund the new projects? So we're kind of at that crossroads ourselves, and it sounds like, perhaps that's where you are too.
Yeah, we're at a crossroads. That could be the best way to say it.
Understood.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Okay. One thing that I'm aware of is our Parks and Rec building was the contribution that came from Cumberland County to build that building. When we actually opened up and I don't know the exact total amount of money, but that was part of our, when we decided to go out on our own, was our building over there so that we'd have our own facility. When we look at the small towns, and within the past 5 years, which I've been very involved in that, being a part of the Mayor's Coalition, those small towns had nothing for a very long time. So when you see this fund balance being spent, it's being spent based on that. In other words, they didn't have anything, and now they were able to request, because there was enough money there to actually offer some things for them. So you have seen a lot of growth in the small towns, and they're very appreciative, and they sing the praises, but they also know now that they're back to, that fund balance has shrunk. And what are we going to get next year, because there's not enough money there to cover it. The other thing that I have a question about is, right now we have a full staff. We have a Parks and Rec director, we have assistant director, we have a lot of staff. And the salaries that are covered come basically, a good bit of it, from our Parks and Rec tax, and then of course whatever we have to budget. Do you have any idea about staffing? I know that what I hear from the other communities is that the maintenance staff is typically a county maintenance staff that does a lot of the work, or Fayetteville City staff that does the cuttings of the fields and that kind of thing, because that's part of it. So would it be, in your mind, would you think that would be a loss of staff for us? Or how would we still cover our staff by coming through with budgets or whatever to do that?
I think that's something that would have to be discussed with the city Parks and Rec to see if there's any duplication in terms of some of the positions and some of the functions. I couldn't sit here tonight and tell you, not knowing,
Right.
what the position titles are and their functions. I would tell you that, the operating costs for those positions, whatever they end up being, would come from the countywide tax. So, that's going to decrease some of what's available to begin with, depending on how many staff it takes to run, your facility here, or to keep things maintained. But it is city folks that are doing the maintenance for us.
And they're doing it for those small towns also, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Now, some of the small towns augment,
Yes.
if they feel like they need to. But for the most part, it is the city folks.
Okay. That's the only questions I have. I too appreciate you being here this evening.
No problem.
It was nice of you to offer to come, and is there any other questions that you would have, or anything that you'd like to ask before? Yes, sir. Anything over there? You just moved your hand. You didn't say you want to speak.
Gotta watch, you might buy a
Yeah,
house.
that's right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. We appreciate you being here
Yes,
this
ma'am.
evening.
Thank you.
Okay, next, we don't have a public hearing this evening, so we do have public comments. And I will at this time remind you that the clock will start and you have 3 minutes. And the first person up is Elizabeth Cooper.
My name is Elizabeth Cooper. I live at 4413 Goldenrod Court, Parkton, North Carolina 28371, but I am a resident of Hope Mills. First, I want to start out with a definition. Sycophant. Noun. A person who acts obsequiously towards someone important in order to gain advantage. I was very outraged by what I saw in the video from the last meeting. When you talk about putting people on a committee, and one of the requirements being that they're in harmony with the board, to me says you're not interested in who's the best person for that committee. It's about who's the best person to serve your needs. And that is not what you were elected for. I have to apologize to everybody here because I voted for all of you. And this is what you are doing to our town. You are more interested in getting your buddies on these committees so that they will just roll with whatever you plan to do than hiring or allowing the best applicants. People who are committed to the mission of that particular committee, be it appearance, be it historical, be it veterans. Repeatedly this year, in your term, you have gone after veterans. And I simply cannot understand how you can do that when this town's population has doubled in the last 15 years. Do you think you had enough babies to double it? No, it's people moving here that is doubling your population. And most of that population is who you are turning your back on. And I am so offended as a female veteran that you would turn away a female veteran who wanted to be on a board. Mamby-pamby reason that we can't have married couples all of a sudden? That's ridiculous. Okay, we're looking for people who are going to be committed to the veteran cause. Who better than a female veteran? Who better?
Next, we have Bruce Armstrong.
A lawyer can't even introduce himself in 3 minutes, but I'll do my best. My name's Bruce Armstrong. I live at 5431 Thompson Circle, Hope Mills. I am a resident of Hope Mills. I've been a resident of Hope Mills for the past 40 years. I've been active in the Hope Mills Youth Association for 35 years, supporting youth recreation sports in this community for 35 years. I'm currently a member of the Town of Hope Mills Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. I am strongly and emotionally opposed to the merger of the Town of Hope Mills Parks and Recreation Program with the city-county program. And I'll try not to be emotional. We've had enough emotion. I'll try not to be emotional in my remarks and give you some facts. I think I could answer some of the questions that perhaps our assistant county manager hasn't had the background in recreation to do, and I understand. His boss, Ms. Cannon's a good friend of mine. I have all the respect in the world for her and for their staff. But let me say this about the merger of that Parks and Recreation program. It was one of the worst decisions the Cumberland County Commissioners ever made. They basically gave away a wonderful Cumberland County Parks and Recreation program to the city after the Big Bang annexation because they were losing so much tax money because of the Big Bang annexation that they were concerned about operating the program. Ask any of your friends in Grays Creek, Eastover, Stedman, any of the other communities outside of the Big Bang annexation, how they have liked the Parks and Recreation program since the merger. They'll tell you that it's been negative. The program has gone downhill in all of those communities. In the same time, Hope Mills, as an independent program, has thrived. We've won 22 state championships in baseball and softball. Rest of Cumberland County's won 0. Okay? That's part of what makes Hope Mills special. People buy homes in Hope Mills because they want their children to be part of the Hope Mills Parks and Recreation Youth Sports Program. They want their son to have a chance to win a state championship. That's one reason people buy homes here. There are two things that make Hope Mills the wonderful, special, great place it is to live. The lake and the sports program for youth in this community. And we just spent $10 million to make sure that lake stayed special and that we kept that special element of our community. And I'm just asking you to show the same kind of support for our youth sports program that is also a reason that we're very special. It's one reason people want to come here. And I'm out of time. I told you a lawyer couldn't talk for 3 minutes. But if this does get considered, I hope it'll be discussed and linked at the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, and they don't have me on a 3-minute time limit there. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Ron Mowry.
My name's Ron Mowry. My address is 4753 Legion Road, Hope Mills. This time I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget it. I'm a member of the Veterans Affairs Committee. When I came up here from a place that was very active for veterans, I came up here and found out the veterans organizations are comatose in Cumberland County. They weren't doing nothing, hardly ever open. I read in the paper, Hope Mills, the town that I've come to love, had a Veterans Affairs. Hey, they give a damn about the veterans. This young lady and her husband founded it. They're a couple, heaven forbid. And when my wife and I joined the Veterans Affairs Committee of her and Jim, me and my wife, and Greeley, and one other of the gentlemen that showed up now and then, and the whole world didn't implode. My wife, the first thing we did is a thing for World War II vets. My wife put so much extra effort in it, your predecessors had her come here and gave her an award. She got pissed off and resigned because she doesn't feel like she was appreciated. I did 24 years in the military, 3 years in Vietnam. Since my welcome home from the first one in '66, it's been my life ambition to make sure no other veteran goes through what I went through. And if you don't understand, come out from behind the desk and talk to me like a person. I have spent thousands of hours. We got a real good group coming this year. We want to do something. We got the veterans community working together, which is the only way we get shit done, excuse my French. I also represent Hope Mills at the Cumberland County Veterans Commission. Before I had to take a leave of sick leave, I went to 2 meetings, August and September. I was told, why is Hope Mills anti-veteran? And I don't know about you, but that means a lot to me. I want to know, any of y'all ever figure out how many veterans live here? How many active duty and their dependents live here? As a Vietnam veteran, I went through hell. It took us 30 years to get recognized for Agent Orange. That's what killed Jim. Right after Jim died, I went through heart surgery. I died. Doctor said, well, we tried a bunch of times to bring you back. Said, we'll try one more time, then we fill out the certificate. Somebody told me I had something more to do. Guess what, folks? You're going to see a lot of me keep making silly mistakes. I'm very proud of this town. I hate to see it go down the tubes. I came up here from the land of Mickey where all you pay all them bucks to go to. So I just get aggravated. Come back from behind that damn desk and talk to us veterans. Find out what we think, because if you are a veteran, you have no idea what we've gone through. I'll give you the extra 80. Hey, I did it in 3 minutes. Do I get a star?
Next, we have Julia Gilmore.
What's the last name there?
Gilmore.
My name is Julia Gilmore. I live at 5531 Heather Street in Hope Mills. First of all, I want to congratulate the Lone Survivor Foundation for finding a property that was welcoming to them. It was in Fayetteville. We lost out. No tax dollars for us, no welcoming to the vets here. We have other agendas for that, don't we? But my other point is, I want you to carefully consider these little ordinances that you keep implementing. You very well may find your own self ill-qualified for the position that you hold, i.e. the military or the Veterans Committee, where you have you're now wanting to impose no couples. I don't see a whole lot of people hammering to work with you folks to serve on any committee, and you selectively choose who gets to serve on them. I don't agree with. I did vote, I do vote, and I will vote. And if I continually see this unprofessional backbiting, you sure won't get my vote. I question your true motives of this council. what your true intent is with some of the decisions that you've made. I'm wondering, whose good is it for? Is it the public truly? Or is it for one person? I don't see nixing the veterans or making them feel unappreciated is a good thing for anybody. Thank you.
Next, Grilly Mitchell.
I wasn't even planning on being here tonight because I stayed in bed all day because I was in total pain, but I had to be here. Grilly Mitchell, 4056 William L. Luther Drive. To the Mayor, Board of Commissioners, town staff, and citizens. Don't take it personal. It is not you or the individuals that I've made that I take issue with. It's the decisions that you make. I have no problem with you making those decisions, as long as they are fair, based on fight, based on thorough research. I witnessed y'all do something tonight that should be done all the time. Asking questions so that when you get back together again, you can make the right choice, the right decision. That's what it's all about. As a senior leader in the military, senior leader on the battlefield, I had to make tough choices, tough decisions. One of the toughest decisions I ever had to make was sit down and tell a group of colonels and leaders that they were wrong. I don't have a problem telling you that you're wrong, because when I make a decision, I guarantee you I've done a front analysis. I have done thorough research. I've done what's required, because the mission always comes first. It doesn't matter. When you begin to take issues personal, it begins to affect your ability to make correct and sound decisions, which will have a negative impact on anyone and everyone that could be affected by it. Making right decisions, tough decisions, is the right thing to do. When Hillary Clinton made a statement, what difference does it make? Trust me, that was not a good statement, because it makes all the difference to the veterans. It makes all the difference to a military person. It makes all the difference to the family members and close friends when a life is lost or someone is seriously injured. It makes all the difference. So she did not get it. She did not understand it at that time. I bet she understands it now. So what difference does it make? It makes a lot of difference on your decisions. It makes a difference when you sit down and talk to one another, talk to us, and get our input. It makes all the difference. And if you make a decision that I don't agree with, I don't have to take a problem with that. I don't have an issue with it. Just make the decision based on the best interest for everybody. What I'm going to do is sit back, analyze, but one thing I will do is begin to pray and ask God to give y'all knowledge, wisdom, understand to make the correct decisions and the right decisions every time you get together.
Thank you. That concludes our public comments. At this time, we have our consent agenda. The following items are on the consent agenda. Consideration of approval of the minutes from the January 14th, 2019 special meeting. Consideration of approval of the minutes from the February 4th, 2019 regular meeting. Consideration of approval of the minutes from the February 4th, 2019 closed session meeting. Consideration of authorizing the town manager to execute contracts for the 4th of July event with two companies, Strawhorn Brothers Incorporated, a 3-year contract for sound and lighting, and a 1-year contract to East Coast Pyrotechnics for the fireworks show. Consideration of authorizing the town manager to execute the contract with Odom Roofing in the amount of $36,750, plus the cost of rotting, sheeting, and fascia replacement. Authorize the town manager to make non-substantial changes to the contract, and our finance director believes this will be a FEMA reimbursable cost. Consideration of approval of the resolution number 2019-05 for disposal of equipment and accept insurance proceeds. Approve budget amendment number 8 for $14,425. Consideration of the police department's Jacobs Creek traffic study and recommendation of 3-way stop signs. Consideration of approval of Sergeant Dean and Detective Hamilton to attend officer-involved shooting school. The total cost for both are $2,249 and is currently budgeted. acceptance of the January 2019 financial statements. Is there anything on the consent agenda that you would like moved to new business, or is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand, seeing none opposed. First thing under old business is a consideration of changes to boards, committees, and commission appointment process rules and proposed amendments to the Appearance Commission ordinance. This is behind tab 9. So I guess, do we want to start with that?
Sure, I'll start. As y'all may recall, we had some issues with some of the policies and procedures we had in place being in conflict with each other. What I've attempted to do here is just create a single policy procedure that would replace all the old policies, and I've attempted to incorporate all of the rules that we had in place into the new policy. So that's what is before you on the first 2 pages of tab 9, Rule 28 and 39. One question that came up, I think, was with regard to the typo here, the second C, which is the mayor making nominations and voting. As I understand it, that's not the way we've been doing it. The mayor makes appointments. The mayor makes appointments to the nominating committee and appoints the liaisons. So if we want to keep it that way, we can remove that, or if we want to add it in, we can add it in. But it's the pleasure of the board.
In the past, I've not made any appointments to any of the standard town committees. The only appointments that I've made are to special single function committees that do a task and then it's done. And I've done those for sign ordinance, I've done those for economic development, I've done those for Lake Festival, those kinds of things. But as far as the regular standing committee, that's why I recommend the nominating committee, and they do all of that, so it's left in their hands. And I don't make any nominations to those committees, nor do I vote on those.
Yeah, and I'm not sure where that language came from. It was in some version of a rule that I looked at, but if we want to revise that to say to nominations for special single issue committees of limited duration or something like that, we could.
Mr. Hartzog.
Yes.
The way that came about is the last board, the consensus that the mayor would go ahead and assign the liaisons for the committees, and so that's where that came from.
Right, and I think the liaison language is under Rule 39F on the second page. It says that the mayor appoints councilman to serve as the liaison.
That was in a new policy change.
Correct, yes, and it's also in this revised policy.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
My understanding, reading this, that it more is if we have a vacancy on this board, that she is able to nominate and to vote on. Is that not how it reads? And then Rule 39 is separate for the actual boards and committees, but if we were to have a vacancy on this board, the mayor would then have the ability to nominate and also vote on the open vacancy of this board, which I think would be only fair. You're as a full board.
Right. Well, we
But
can certainly clarify.
is that not how it? Is that, or do you look at it separately? Because I just didn't want it to be confusing for committees or commissions to read that and think that it's in regards to them. It's more in regards to a vacancy on this board, that the mayor would have the ability to nominate and vote on a vacancy of this board.
And if that's the intent of that provision, I think we need to just add some clarifying language to say with respect to a vacancy on the town board.
It's also, well, the same thing would be on the nominating committee, because within that same paragraph above it, it states that I appoint the nominating committee. So if there's a vacancy there, I don't believe it had anything to do with the vacancy on this board, because the procedure for putting someone in place, we've gone through that several times as far as, the need for having an application process. We've gone about it. We have had openings we've had to fill, but it hasn't been by nomination of the mayor. The board had to do the nomination. The mayor didn't. So I don't know. I guess clarification would work.
Yeah, well, what we could do is have an entirely separate rule for a vacancy on the Board of Commissioners, and set out how we want to fill the vacancy in that rule as sort of a standalone rule rather than part of these procedures.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Is there a problem with the way it's written now?
Well, the way it's written now, as I read it, it just says the mayor may make nominations and vote on appointments under this rule, which I would read that as under any circumstance.
Do you have
So if we want
you
to-
want the book part?
Well,
Trey Allen.
we could use that as the go by if we want to revise it, but as it reads here in this draft, we would need to revise it.
Because we have went through the process of replacing someone several times,
Right.
and I didn't see a problem with the way we were doing it. And I don't recall who the mayor had part in that, or if it was the board members. But I believe it was the board members who had.
I just facilitated whatever the method we did. The voting was actually the board's responsibility.
I had asked for the next highest vote getter to fill the seat, but that didn't go my way early, about a year ago.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out if there's a separate policy with respect to vacancies on the Board of Commissioners, and I think it may be in the town charter. We'll have to check. Or in the general
So
statutes.
can we adopt these rules with revisiting of that one provision once we have time to check into it?
Sure. Yeah, that was my intent tonight, is to
yeah.
bring it to y'all for discussion purposes, and I assume either that y'all would ask for some changes, or there'd be some questions on some parts of it, but I can certainly revise that piece of it.
What, and may I ask the reason why that is an issue? Why would it be an issue the way it's written now?
Well, it's up to the board.
I think it was just the clarification whether it was for committees or for the vacancy on this board.
Why would it matter? Either way. I'm elected too.
But the Trey Allen book says that's not what we adopted in Trey Allen. We adopted the Trey Allen book as is.
Well, we also adopted this also.
Which is the Trey Allen.
That we fall back on
Yeah.
that. Okay, well, I guess whatever you determine. The
Well,
board
it's
did.
not up to me, it's up to the
Well,
board.
then whatever they decide to vote on, I don't have a problem with it. I just feel like that's, okay, what's the next section that we're going to? I think they want you to revise it. Is that what I'm
Is that-
hearing? Or you want to
can I
make
get a
you want them
consensus
to
to make sure?
motion and vote? What do you
Just
want
a
them to do?
consensus would,
Okay, so,
because we're not adopting anything tonight.
okay, so what do you want this to say? Commissioner Larson, what do you want it to say?
Oh, it's not up to me.
I know, but you're-
39 is written exactly like Trey Allen.
Okay,
So that's straight out of Trey Allen. It's that one line. And I was asking, when I wrote that, I was asking for clarification whether that was for committees or towards the vacancy of this board. So it's not up to me, though.
And if
I'm
the
just-
intent of the board, either way, I can have the language read either way. If the
Okay.
intent of the board is to have it for vacancies for the Board of Commissioners itself, then I would want to add some clarifying language for that.
That numbering's off too, because we got C as being nomination and voting procedure, and then it's C again.
Yeah, there's a typo there, and I'll fix that as well.
And just to clarify on nomination and voting procedures, the nominating committee just brings forth recommendations based on what we see, but any of the elected can make a nomination and or vote on any appointment to any citizen committee. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And has been that way.
Correct.
And I did ask for whether there was any nominations at the last time we made recommendations, and there were none. Just to clarify. Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
what actually are we changing here?
We're looking.
That's what I asked.
We're asking for the clarification on the second C.
On the second C?
Yeah.
Okay, and that reads, just to make sure that I'm right, The mayor may make nominations and vote on appointments under this rule.
Under Rule 38, which is.
Yeah, under
the
Rule
way I
38.
read 38, it's for this board. Not for committees or commissions, but the actual Board of Commissioners. And then 39 is for for the committees and commissions, and that is established by the commissioners only.
The way I see this, Rule 39 is committees and boards.
Yeah.
Rule 38 is appointments. So we're wanting to change, I guess, D, the authority of the mayor. Is that what we're doing?
No,
I think
Or the
under-
second C?
Under the first C, it says in the council itself or in any other body over which it has the power of appointment, which would be any of the boards and commissioners. So I think if we are intending that to apply only to the board of commissioners, I would need to add some clarifying language.
right. That's the way I read it if that's not how, I mean, that's how everyone else reads it too, but 38 to me reads that if there was a vacancy on this board, that the mayor would have the opportunity to nominate and to vote on filling that.
Okay, so, Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
just to be clear, we're not talking about committees, are we? Or commissions? We're talking about Rule 38, appointments to this board. Is that what we're talking about?
I think Rule 38 is broader than that.
Yeah, I'm
As I read
thinking,
it.
well, that's where, what I'm reading is it's like the appointments I make out to committees, or I set up a special committee. So if they say I can't make the nominations or vote, then is that saying that I'm taking away, you're removing my responsibility to set up a special committee? I.e., I just set up one for the Parks and Rec with the, looking at the possibility of partnering with the YMCA. That's the most recent one I've done.
Which is, like
That's
I said earlier,
under
we can
39, though.
add the language that says.
But that's under Rule 39, where it says, council may establish temporary and standard committee boards and other bodies to help carry the work of the city government, otherwise provided by law or the council. The power of appointment to such bodies lies to the council. And that's straight out of Trey Allen.
Well, I think the issue is the way we've done it, and it's up to the board if we want to continue doing it a certain way, or if we want to change the way we do it.
Well-
Maybe it would work better if I revised this a little bit more to make it more clear as to which rule applies to which thing, and have bring back a revised version with some more clarity on that.
I mean, if we're gonna follow Trey Allen, let's follow Trey Allen and quit.
I mean, that's what we decided to do from the very beginning.
But from the very beginning, we did not change that aspect of the mayor's role. And in fact, we even, if you go back and look at the policy, the previous board, even as far as appointment of liaisons, the previous board left that intact for the mayor's responsibility. So I'll venture out on this one that I've been to enough of the Trey Allen information also, that this board can assign the duties and responsibility to this mayor. Based on that, if you read on into it, you see they can give me powers or take away powers. And that particular power of being able to set up outside or special committees has always been because of, again, not saying that they wouldn't set up a good committee, but just gives me an opportunity to set up a committee, like for instance, the most recent one I set up with the YMCA and Parks and Rec and the outside people to put on that committee. So I've done that since I've been mayor, set up the standard committees, and there's never been an issue with that until now.
It's not that it's an issue. I think that we just decided when we came on board, we all said we wanted to adopt Trey Allen as is written in the book, and we didn't want to have any variations from Trey Allen.
Well, this was approved March 5th, 2018. This
Right,
is
and-
rules and
and-
procedures, and if you go in here and look, and it gives you information, and it says we refer back, if all else fails, you go back to Robert's Rules of Order.
It's under 39, not 38. Rule 39 on our rules of procedure.
All right. But the board has to decide. So I guess bring it back so the board can
Causing some
decide.
confusion is what I try to do in this revision is incorporate all of the rules. You know, we had various other policies and procedures in place that applied to this appointment of board members, and what I tried to do was incorporate those policies and procedures we had in place into the Rule 38 as written by Trey Allen. If we want to stick with just, you know, straight language from Rule 38 as is, I suppose we could do that. My attempt, at least, was to incorporate all those other policies and procedures we had in place into this rule. But maybe that's not the way we want to go.
Madam Mayor, let me ask this. 'Cause I'm trying to find clarity. Are we trying to clarify single-use committees and commissions, or standing use committees and commissions?
We're trying to say that if you look under 38, I have power. If you look under 39, I don't. And we want to abolish 38 and go by 39. That's what we're looking at.
Okay.
Which would mean that the board would set up the and I guess the one other thing that I would request here is, I guess take a close look at it. Am I not also a member of the council, or am I just,
In a lot of ways, I think that's true, but I think there is a defined role as council members
Okay.
versus mayor. But
so I guess,
I would need to look at a particular, you know, statutory.
What we have in our adopted rules of procedure, Rule 39 is exactly what's written in Trey Allen's book, word for word.
Correct.
That's not, it's not the way that it has always been done previously, but we adopted Trey Allen as is, and that is a rule change from what the board in the past has done.
correct,
And-
but it's been now, since December, 2017, that we have followed the rule, and I've made appointments, I've set up committees, and I've done that. And now today, February
Well, it's not, it's because we're looking at the rules to establish it. I mean, I don't think any of
That's
us
why-
were
okay.
thinking, it wasn't
I
set out
guess-
to be.
All right. When all else fails, I guess what we do is we refer it to the attorney, so you bring something back.
Madam Mayor,
Yeah,
for clarification,
yes,
I
sir.
would ask that we ask the attorney to reword this however he sees fit and bring it back to the board for adoption.
Is there consensus among the board as to whether we want to stick more closely with Rule 38 and 39 as written by Trey Allen? Are there pieces of what we've got in this, you know, revision before you that you like, that you don't like? Because I don't want to be the one creating the rules. I'll be happy to draft what the board wants, but
I personally think we should stay with Trey Allen. That's what we had originated when we picked this book, that this was gonna be cohesive with general statutes, and it was written that way. So my preference is that we stay as close to Trey Allen.
And if you go down and read Rule 40, at any time, these rules may be amended at any regular meeting or any properly called special meeting for which the amendment of rules is one of the meeting's stated purposes. So I do believe that if you go back and read, the powers of the mayor are given to the mayor by the Board of Commissioners. I do believe that is one of the powers that can be given to me as far as appointment of committees. So I guess you could write it both ways then, and the board can decide, because they would have to be the one to make the decision.
Madam
May I ask
Mayor,
a question?
so
Yes,
Rule
sir.
39 is word for word Trey Allen.
Yes.
Okay, so what in Rule 38 is different than Trey Allen? Let's go there.
Rule 38, the only thing that's different in Rule 38 in Trey Allen, it says you may or may not allow the mayor to nominate. We have the choice of making that for the fulfilling of this board's vacancy. The number C on our sheet for the thing.
That's the only difference.
Yes.
Everything
Yes.
else is word for word. But
So-
we have the choice, not or are in parentheses, so it's an option of the board to allow the mayor to vote on vacancies of this board.
So we're not talking about committees or commissions, we're
No.
talking about a vacancy of
On
this governing
board,
body.
This governing body.
Okay.
Yes, that's it.
All right.
The point that's being made, Commissioner Bellflowers, is that
Ugh.
then I am
Damn.
not going to be able to appoint any committees in the future. It would have to be a board-appointed committee, that I would not make any appointments to special committees. That is what is being requested, that I not be allowed to do.
Well, it's not being requested, it's Rule 39.
Well, we can always amend Rule 39. It can be amended. Anything can be amended. And if we've been doing this, and it hasn't had any problems with my appointing special committees, I very rarely appoint special committees. So,
Okay, so now we're back over on 39. I thought we were in 38.
well, the reason for addressing 38 is so then that removes all possibilities of my doing anything other than facilitating the meeting. And of course, being able to refer to Robert's Rules of Order if there's a question.
I think part of the confusion is I read Rule 38 to apply to nominations of any committee based on Rule 38B that says to fill a vacancy in the council itself or in any other body over which it has the power of appointment, which would be any committee or commission. And so when I revised Rule 38 and Rule 39 as proposed here, I was treating Rule 38 as applying to committees and commissions as well as the board itself. And I think the clarification, the language that would need to be added if we want to, if the will of the board is to have the mayor not vote on committees or commissions other than the council itself, I would need to add that clarifying language under the rule. The other language that's in here that I added to Rule 38 and 39 or proposed to add are rules that were in other various policies sort of floating around town that were in place. And I tried to sort of incorporate all of those policies into the rule so that we didn't have conflicting policies. So with that said, is there any language in the revision to Rule 38 and 39 that I've added that we want to keep, or do we want to have a separate policy apart from the rules of procedure that apply to, because we've created some rules with respect to nominations for committees, such as keeping applications on, for a year. I added a provision about, we added a provision some time ago about if you miss however many number of meetings that you can be removed. I try to sort of make that a little easier to work with and just give the council the power to remove for various reasons under Rule 39, such as inefficiency, or neglect of duty, or malfeasance in office. So I guess I just need some direction from the board on what we want to look at as far as Rule 38, 39. Do we want to keep that as Trey Allen and have a separate policy on the various rules that we've come up with for nominating, or do we want to keep it as Trey Allen and incorporate some of the other changes that we've come up with over the years?
Ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Dan, exactly which rules did we vote on when we adopted? Just Trey Allen book of
It's
rules of
Rule
order.
38 and 39 is set forth in the rules of procedure.
They're in the rule book?
Yes.
They're in your packet of Board of Commissioner Rules of Procedure.
And we voted to adopt it as written in the rule book.
Yes.
Correct.
Is that the way it's written in our procedures? I don't have my book with me.
Yes, it is, but just as we've changed the way we do other things, we've adjusted this whenever it was needed to solve whatever problem was needed to be solved. So I would just request that you would look at amending that so the mayor can continue to appoint special committees that serve functions outside of the realm of our everyday committees. And then I guess, any other,
I'd like to make a comment.
okay?
We've been operating this way for quite some time. I've never seen any problem with it. Everything's gone real smoothly. And we did adopt it in our policy and procedures, the way it's set up now. I don't see any need in changing anything.
Well, I think the reason it came to, to something we needed to do is that we had some conflicting rules in various policies, and my
I know
attempt
Trey Allen
to-
is fantastic and all, I understand that.
I agree.
But there's, every town and all operates differently, and you have to make adjustments even to him, I think. That's just my opinion. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I can bring back several different versions to go through.
Okay. Is that all right
Or
with the
create a
board?
separate
I mean,
policy
I'll go on the
that-
record that I think we should stay with Trey Allen. That's what we adopted. That's what we should have been doing, and we haven't been doing it correctly. And now we're just realizing that because we are doing the rules of procedure. It's not like we're changing anything, because it's what we should have been doing all this time, and we haven't been doing it correctly.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Commissioner Larson that Trey Allen is a standardization of municipals across the state. And it takes biasism out of our rules and procedures. That it's an independent person that wrote a book about standardization. There's no politics at play in it. It is what it is, and I think we should adopt it. I thought we had already adopted it without any modifications.
We just haven't been doing it correctly.
Well, we modified it when we did our own separate book, because you pull from Trey Allen the things that you'd put in our rules of procedure. Is that not correct?
There's various places in Trey
Right.
Allen. I mean, it's a model that
It's this rules of procedure that we have before us, that I carry every meeting that we adopted, is what we pulled together. That would be our rules of procedure. And the final thing in here says that, the council shall refer to Robert's Rules of Order newly revised for guidance when confronted with a procedural issue not covered by these rules that we have written for us. So I granted, yes, it's 39's in there, but 38's also in there. And the assumption has been that the mayor has a responsibility to make those nominations. Now, as far as nominations to this board, I've never thought that my role would be to nominate somebody to fill a seat on this board. And that's never been, my thought was just the special committees that I've always done. So if you could take in those both views and bring back something, if I lose on a vote of the commissioners, that will be fine. But I'm not gonna lose because I didn't stand up for the fact I think the mayor should have the right to also appoint special committees.
Is that what the issue is?
Yes.
I think the other issue is just how y'all want it to look. Do you want me to do a separate policy with regard to some of the rules we created for nominating?
Well, those are all outside of his book, are they not?
Right.
Yes, I mean, we've created policies and we've created information and rules that are outside of this rules and procedure, and that is outside of that book. So in fact, if we've done that, then I don't see why we can't do something that would at least bring before this board both options.
This is straight out of our book.
Correct.
Yes.
I said that.
Yes.
I said that, but,
right.
but these other things that we've been added are not. Now, do we need a motion, or can we just move forward with, so we can move on?
I'll bring back a couple options.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All righty, next on our is discussion of HopeMills.net article and appointments process. And this is as requested by Mayor Pro Tem Mitchell. So is this something you're gonna take over, or is?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Mitchell.
I was just going to address this article that stated February 7th, Mitchell launches new attack on veterans. I take exception to this article. Never at any point did I separate any discussion on this Veterans Committee. I talked about all of our committees as a whole. you know, if you study good governance by the North Carolina Center for Nonprofit Organizations, they dictate one of the qualifications to even get grant monies is that you don't have related parties on same committees or same boards, that it lends itself to too much power of one couple. It was mentioned somewhere that the board, the committees are made up of 7 members, but as you all know, quorum is also 4 members, and many times we only have 4 members attend committee meetings. And if you have a married couple, then you have 50% of the vote. And I'll just call it out that in the Parks and Rec, we had a problem 2 years ago. It had nothing to do with the Veterans Committee. We had a power struggle on the Parks and Rec Committee. It didn't fare well. It caused a lot of dissension. I ended up taking over as the chair of the Parks and Rec because we had a lot of issues from the married couple. For right, wrong, or indifferent, that's what happened. I mentioned to y'all at the meeting that my wife has served in non-voting capacities, has volunteered on the historical committee, not being a voting member. We have a lot of veterans in this town. That's true. We should be able to find 7 that can serve, that aren't married, that aren't a couple. Same thing is true for all of our committees. I could understand if we were parked in our lumber bridge and with a limited citizen pool, but we do have almost 17,000 citizens here, and we do probably have 60% veterans. So we probably got 9,000 veterans that could serve on the Veterans Committee without being a married couple. It was certainly not meant to be personal. If you look at my personal attendance, you'll see that I have stood in for the mayor back in 2012 and 13, memorial services, veteran services. You can look up here at this board and you can figure out who read the names on Veterans Day. I take exception. I've been a trusted advisor for over 33 years to thousands of veterans. This week alone, this is Monday, I've already served 2 veterans today. I mean, I can line them up in the hallway. To take exception, we keep talking about the Lone Survivor Foundation, and I'm sorry, that property was never for sale. I would not advise any client ever to have taken $84,000 with us paying for a phase 2 environmental study of a property that we know is contaminated, that's got asphalt laying on it, that's in the flood zone, 20 feet underwater, 2 different hurricanes, beside a sewer lift station. I wouldn't do that to my worst enemy, and I sure wouldn't do it to any Veterans Association. And you should be ashamed that but this town wanted to sell them a piece of crap property like that. And that's just the way I feel. The contingent liability was $500,000 to $1 million cleanup of property on Lake Bed number 2. It was never going to happen even if we did with the phase 2 studies. The phase 1 studies already indicated there were problems. You guys need to do your homework. Gridley talks about doing your homework. I do all my homework all the time, as does this board. And I just need to clear that up. We've got an investigation going on. It took 5 to 6 months to pay for the phase 1 studies. Now, what engineer you know don't take their money up front on a study to be paid for? Because I don't know any. The nomination process is just that. When I made the last nominations that was recommended by Commissioner Legg and myself, I opened the floor and said, are there any nominations from any other elected? The room was silent. They had the opportunity to nominate Ms. Blevins at that time. They did not. So all these committees serve at the pleasure of the board. It clearly states this. Governor Cooper just removed somebody for negative comments in the media. He just removed a commission member, LaWanda Mayfield, for a tweet she sent out because it wasn't in unison with what the Republican government wanted at the time. And we have the same power to rescind. I don't think we would ever rescind a member. We appreciate what you guys do, but at the same time, we don't have to get ripped up week by week but for all in the name of politics. If you want to know who my adversaries are, you look back at the 2015 campaign and you'll see some very ugly and gruesome pictures drawn by some of these well-respected citizens that were shared, and that politics still goes on today. I also made comments about a particular citizen sitting on a zoning board that was suing our town over a zoning issue, and I still believe to this day there's a vendetta against me personally for making those comments as a regular citizen, just like you guys stand up there at the podium. So enough's enough.
Madam Mayor, may I say something?
Sure.
In respect to this anti-veteran campaign that some have launched on us, I haven't always felt the need that I had to share that I have 3 nephews that served, that my uncle died in the war, that my father served, my son's going in. I'm hardly anti-veteran. I was not in support of LSF on our property. I was in support of them coming to Hope Mills, but not giving our property. It's shameful, some of the things that people write. I showed them to my son who is going in the service, and how disgusted he was to read some of those comments. It's shameful. Because I didn't serve doesn't make me less of an American.
I will point out that I also ran a fundraiser for Lone Survivor for my birthday last year, just to see these veterans that say they support the veterans group, just to see who had raised money, and I was surprised at who didn't contribute. But we raised almost $600, and I appreciate those that did contribute.
Anything further on this item? The next item under consideration of Veterans Affairs Commission voting changes, and this is, turn this over to Commissioner Bellflowers.
Thank you, Mayor. I purposely saved my comments from the earlier discussion to discuss it here. Okay, so now we're back to the table motion again. So I'm going to make the motion and then we'll get into discussion. And the original motion from our last meeting was an exception to policy to allow the VFW, Veterans Foreign Wars, and American Legion liaisons who are currently Veterans Affairs Commission non-voting members because of their individual Hope Mills address, the opportunity to vote on agenda matters that come before the commission. That was what was tabled from our last meeting. And I think it was tabled because our attorney had some input or wanted to provide input, and I think that's why it was tabled. So if that's the case, then I'll come back to discussion, Mayor. I'll allow the attorney to entertain the input, and then I'll come back to my discussion.
Okay.
Well, I'll say I did look into the commission versus committee issue on a couple of these, and as I said, I think at a meeting a couple of meetings ago, the primary difference between a commission and a committee is that a committee serves really in an advisory capacity, whereas a commission is something that is created by statute that has, specific designated statutory authority as granted by the board. The board can grant certain powers or not, but they're listed out in the statute as to what powers the commission has. I think what the Veterans Affairs, I think it's been referred to as a commission over the years and a committee over the years.
Yeah.
And I think it really is a committee rather than a commission, because I didn't see any statutory authority for a municipality to create a Veterans Affairs Commission as opposed to a committee. And I think the way that it's been functioning is really more akin to a committee in any event. So I think to clarify one thing, I think it should be referred to as the Veterans Affairs Committee rather than the Veterans Affairs Commission. That said, with regard to voting rules and membership rules, it's the will of the board. And one of the things that we may or may not want to clarify in rules of procedure with regard to appointments to committees. If we want to make an exception for the Veteran Affairs Committee, that those members don't have to be citizens to be voting members. I think there's nothing prohibiting the board from doing it.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll continue. I look up at that picture of Edwin Deaver, and I know through the years when I served on the Veterans Affairs Commission, as he called it, through the years how it was founded. It was founded by veterans, myself. It was founded by family members that had one common denominator, and that's serving veterans of the Hope Mills community. Now that means, doesn't matter whether you're independent, Democrat, or Republican, you vote veteran. That's who I am. It seems like we've brought this issue several times now. And there's a tremendous amount of work that goes on this committee. And it doesn't, and everybody on this committee is a veteran. They're not a Republican, Democrat, Independent, Libertarian. They're a veteran. That's who serves this committee. And we serve our blessed population of veterans in this Hope Mills community. It's who we are. I'm passionate about it, as you could tell. And I'm a little upset too. And I beg forgiveness in advance because I may get ugly. I really might. This past weekend, I attended a long conference, state conference, Veterans Affairs, Veterans Foreign Wars State Conference this past weekend, along with Gene Clark, along with Bill Green. And I'm thinking to myself about all the 100 counties across this great state and all the cities and municipalities that have Veterans Affairs commissions and committees. None of them have commissions, by the way. It is a committee in function. I think it's the name that actually changes. And how they serve the community. And that's where this is. Because I often say partnerships are not a bad name. It's not a dirty word. And with our commission, with this committee, we have the opportunity to have a liaison member from the VFW, from the American Legion, from the DAV, who are nationally recognized and community recognized veteran service organizations that help every veteran. It don't matter where you live. It don't matter what political party you belong to. That's who I am too. And I think the exception to policy for these two positions, VFW and American Legion, to have voting rights on the Veterans Affairs Committee shouldn't even be it should just be an automatic vote. And that is, if you vote yes for veterans. Now I'm gonna get going, I guess. We are a blessed community of veterans in Hope Mills and in all across Cumberland County. If anybody's ever been to a VFW state conference, you'll see them come from 100 counties across our great state, in and out of our great state, and they're all one common denominator, and that's veterans serving veterans. It's who we are. It's what makes us unique. It's the backbone of this community, and it's a backbone of those mayors up on that wall. We work in partnership with another organization called Heroes Homecoming, which represents a lot of different veteran service organizations across Cumberland County. I think this will be the 6th year, Mayor, right? I think this is year 6 that we will be conducting the Heroes Homecoming events. over the coming months leading up to Veterans Day. And on that committee, nobody is asked on that committee, do you live in Florida? You live in California? You know what's asked on that committee? Are you a veteran or are you a volunteer? That's what's asked on that committee. I was proud to serve on this committee. When I retired in 2003, Jim Clark came to me and asked me, after I had retired for 26 years of service to our great nation, if I would serve on this committee. That it was founded by him and his wife. And also throughout the years, there's been a number of husband and wife, which I'm not opposed to, serving on any committee in this town. None. It's tough enough. It's tough enough to find volunteers to work on our committees. And I don't think we should limit any volunteerism on our proud committees because it's an unpaid position. It's a thankless job, but in return, it helps so many in this committee. I mean, this community. Now, our last meeting, this board approved a joint committee to look at the golf course. I heard the mayor go through various agency names, Cumberland County Schools, Cumberland County Commissioners, YMCA. I guess I could have said, hold up now, because they got to live in Hope Mills or they won't be able to serve on this committee, the individuals. But that's not what happened. I'm asking this board tonight to make a decision, one way or the other here. An exception to policy for a representative from the VFW and the American Legion and the DAV. I'm going to add them now because they would like to join our committee too. An opportunity to be voting members on the Veterans Affairs Committee for the town of Hope Mills. Because I tell you, I'm to the point now where if we don't do this, maybe we should just dissolve the whole thing. And I hate to say that. It hurts me to say that. We don't talk about political parties on this committee. We talk about helping veterans. We talk about veterans programs. We talk about veteran issues. We talk about VA hospital that's right out here. We talk about Fort Bragg. Now you got me in my state commander mode. And I'm, So that's what I'm asking. This committee is unique because it has a lot of volunteers that come to it. And there's a lot of moving parts with veteran issues in not only Hope Mills, but with Heroes Homecoming that's coming up now. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff that's coming up before us too. Well, I think we got a new stadium about to open up in Fayetteville. And oh, by the way, in case you don't know, Fort Bragg population of active duty is growing in numbers of active duty and family members. And they are looking to live in a veteran-friendly community, and it is this one. At least that's why I retired here. So I'm going to tell this board, I'm going to vote veteran. And I asked this board tonight for the exception to policy. That's my motion, Mayor.
Any discussion? I would also like to say that the Women's Auxiliary, I am a member, and I want you to know that that's another example of the veterans and their spouses that work very closely. They put on our Memorial Day celebration, they put on our Veterans Day celebration, and they work countless hours trying to support their spouse, but also supporting Hope Mills. So I too would say that we're very fortunate in Hope Mills that we do have a lot of veterans, but we also have a lot of veterans and their families that do a lot for us. You can see it out on the youth sports and the ball fields, their coaches, their team moms, and they're very definitely an asset to our community. So I too do not have, I keep being told because I can't vote, but if this board would give me a vote, I would vote also for, I think this would be an issue that was very important for our town. We have a motion on the floor. Is there any other discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
in this motion we were talking about the commissions, the committees a while ago about husband and wife serving on it. Is this part of your motion or is this separate?
No, that was voted on at our last meeting. This motion here is only to allow the VFW, American Legion. And I don't have a volunteer for DAV, but they'll come back. But for this motion is to allow those liaisons the opportunity to vote on the committee. That's the motion.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
what do our rules state, Dan? The Robert Rule of Order, or whichever one it is there?
I don't know that the rule necessarily speaks to that. Let's see.
Section 200.
200.
Members of the commission may be reimbursed for actual expenses, incidental.
That's the appearance.
Okay, I'm sorry, the one above that. Must be residents at the time of appointment, but is
That's
not
what-
required.
That's with regard to the
Appearance commission.
Appearance Commission.
The
Yeah.
commission.
Because that's designated by statute that they have to be members of the.
So we don't go,
There's no
we're not going across the board, right?
There's no statute for the veterans. It's
Right.
just for the appearance.
And that sort of gets to the difference between a commission and a committee. A commission is governed generally by statute, and in that particular statute, there is a residence requirement. There's not necessarily a residence requirement for a committee but that's required by statute. I think in the past, the board has generally imposed that requirement for committees, but it's the will of the board if you want to make an exception for a particular individual or committee.
Commissioner Bellflowers,
Yes.
are we only speaking of the liaisons of two veteran organizations? Well, you don't have one right now for the.
I don't have one for DAV, but I mean, if the board wanted to include DAV, that would be welcome. There is interest from the DAV. There may even be interest from a representative from one of the colleges, from the Student Veterans of America, to serve on this committee. But we didn't apply that rule at our last meeting with the standing committee on the golf course. We didn't apply that rule then. We didn't require anybody to live in Hope Mills. Did we?
Well, there's a temporary committee.
That's an ad hoc committee, right?
A committee is a committee. We didn't impose that rule then.
This is a permanent committee. This is a hard.
I don't know how much harder working committee you can have.
It's a hard one for me. You mentioned the previous mayors. Al Bradford, as you know, served as commissioner for a number of years.
Life member.
Edwin Deaver served as commissioner for a number of years.
Life member.
But neither one of them made a motion to allow non-residents on the committees. I know I'll be painted anti-veteran again, but when you make exception for one committee, then the other committees will follow suit and they'll expect the same type of treatment, right, wrong, or indifferent. I consider Bill Green a good friend. I wouldn't even be sitting up here if it weren't for Jean Clark. She's the one that got me involved at the chamber. I did some good things for the chamber at the time. And then she got me coming to these meetings. And so this is a tough one for me. But when you make exceptions for one committee, then where does it stop? You know, Parks and Rec Committee, you know, if you got somebody that works for the city of Fayetteville, and should they be allowed to vote that type of thing. On the Parks and Rec Committee, I appreciate your request. I just can't support it. I just can't support it.
Mayor Warner.
Yes, ma'am.
I support Jesse 100%. I feel that the Veterans Affairs Committee is a 90-degree turn from the other committees that we have here in town. We would not be here, or I know I wouldn't be here, if it wasn't for veterans fighting for us. They have sacrificed so much, some giving up their lives and some even coming back, and the family members not being able to understand what they've gone through. And Vietnam, I mean, they were frowned upon, and it's just really sad what has happened to a lot of our veterans. I don't know of any committee here or commission that could say they have done as much for Hope Mills and for the community as the veterans have. And I'm behind Jesse 100%. Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I am not a retired military member. That has nothing to do with the way I vote on things. I was drafted to go in the service during the Vietnam War. I stayed less than 24 hours and they sent me home. But I still respect those who serve our country and fight for our country. I respect them the same as I do our policemen and firemen and the first responders. Like Mr. Mitchell said, this is a tough one here.
Any other discussion? Then I'll call for the vote.
Member Pro Tem, or to the board, everyone. What if we made the exception to the VFW liaison and the American Legion liaison only? There would not be any additions to it. These two have been members for some time working with this group, but any other member that would be a non-voting member at that point. Would that be possible to do?
You said it'd be voting members? They're already liaison, right?
Right, yes, they've been, and I would assume they've been voting members.
Non-voting.
They have been non-voting members all this time.
Non-voting.
But liaisons.
They're non-voting. They're liaison. The individuals are liaisons from the Veteran Service Organization.
Mr. Green, though, is not a voting member on this board.
Neither is John Cook.
Is it okay if I say something, please? Can I go up and say something?
No, sir, I'm sorry. I think what Commissioner Bellflowers is requesting is that the VFW and the American Legion liaison, no matter who they are, be now voting members, not particular to the person, but to those representations of those two groups.
It's to the Veteran Service Organization. That's who it is at the table. It's not the name of the individual, of the person. It's the Veteran Service Organization. That's who it is. So it may be Bill Green today, it may be somebody else a year from today, but it's still, there will be a representative from that Veteran Service Organization on that committee. That's what this is. It's a partnership of a Veteran Service Organization, a true partnership. I mean, look at Heroes Homecoming. Look at all of the different agencies that are in that room at the library. Those are agencies that are all in there. I don't believe Angie goes around saying, do you live in Cumberland County? Do you live in Fayetteville? Do you live in Spring Lake? No, it's the agency that's there. That's who's representing. And that's who needs to represent here.
Well, this is tough because I have to agree. I mean, it's tough because you have other committees that we do not allow our liaisons to vote. I mean, and That makes it tough, because then we have to change the rules for all of them. I don't think, it's right to do for one and not for others.
I don't think we have to change any rules. We just do exception of policy for the individual committees. Look at all the work this committee does. I mean, we've got Memorial Day coming up. Who do you think is out there organizing Memorial Day? Who does the parades? Who does Veterans Day?
Rex does a lot too. I mean, and they don't.
We do it in partnership.
Can we not partnership and not have to have the vote? Can we not have a working partnership? But do we have to have the voting in there?
I think it's advantageous for every member that serves on that committee to have the vote, because they're all one team. They're veterans. You'd have to know what that means. You got to be a veteran to know what that means. I don't think I'm asking a whole lot. We're a blessed community of veterans. I vote veteran.
Okay, at this time, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of allowing a representative from the VFW and the American Legion to serve in voting responsibilities for our Veterans Committee, signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed?
I don't know. I don't know. You need my vote.
You have to vote. You have to vote.
As of now, it's a yes vote. If you don't vote one way or the other.
I'm sorry, I have to say no then.
Okay, then it's a 3-2, so that they now have the two members that will be voting representatives, and that's the VFW liaison and the American Legion liaison.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, next we have consideration of the sign ordinance amendments, and I'll turn it over to Mr. McLaughlin.
Hello, Madam Mayor, distinguished board. In the interest of time, I will try to keep this as brief as possible. What we basically have is we had our recent work session, and ultimately you're being presented with what the general consensus was at that time. Instead of going through every single change, I wanted to just kind of go over the summary of the major points. We kept everything the same in terms of requiring professional sign companies, everything regarding misdemeanors for signs put on light posts, things of that nature. None of that was changed. Some of the things we did change that came out at the last work session was that any sign that's damaged, we're now giving them 6 months to repair. It was formerly 30 days. One thing that Mr. Riddle pointed out, I went through his letter that everyone got, and I did make this change. I didn't think it would cause that much of an issue. He was talking about temporary real estate signs. They're currently allowed at a max of 8 square feet. I doubled that to 16 square feet. I do think that was a change that really wouldn't move the needle that much, but it would make a bit of a difference to him to double the size of what was currently allowable. You also increased temporary banners to 90 days. And then the major one, and it seems like pole signs is just the one area of contention. We created the 2-tier approach for ground monument signs, where we have a 10-foot max on your standalone one-tenant properties and a 20-foot max on your multiple tenant properties. And that's basically it. In your ordinance, you do have a copy of the in your package, you have a copy of the language, and I put a PowerPoint presentation that gave you a comprehensive list of all the changes. But that's basically it. It seemed as though at the last meeting everything was okay in terms of the general consensus, other than pole signs.
So where is pole signs in here? The only thing I see is that one.
That's what I'm getting at. Ultimately, we made the decision. There were conversations at the end of the meeting where we were trying to figure out where we can put pole signs in terms of what areas of Hope Mills. Whether or not we could put the definition of pole signs in there, allow for variances and things of that nature. I would caution against any move that would open the door for variances, because when you have a situation like this, you may be bombarded with an influx of variance requests that may not be tied to the 4 criteria that actually make them a candidate for a variance approval. So I felt a little nervous about doing that, so I ultimately moved to just keep pole signs out. If you guys wanted to ultimately put, now the definition of pole sign is in there just as a reference, but this ordinance that you currently have does not include pole signs. I do think it's very difficult to try to come up with a 2-tiered approach for standalone and multiple tenant properties with ground signs and monument signs, and to have pole signs in as a use. I do not have an issue if the board ultimately decides to vote to include pole signs, but based on the general consensus of everything else being, or what appeared to be unanimous with the pole sign, I just made a decision to keep them out. If you guys, I'd definitely like to open the floor to any questions that you may have, but it appeared to be just very difficult to try to craft language that would put pole signs in certain areas of Hope Mills, excluding them in other areas, or without just allowing them back in the ordinance outright. Any question that you may have, I'd definitely like to open up the floor.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, question on 4 pole signs. Down on Main Street, at least 80% of Main Street is pole signs.
That is correct.
Okay, everything would be grandfathered in that has a pole sign right now.
That is correct.
Okay, if we don't include pole sign in our ordinance, they can't come in for a variance.
No, they cannot.
Because it's not in our ordinance.
Correct. And that's what I mean by I would caution against even moving in that direction, because you're going to have, with this being a very, very hot topic, I do think you're going to open up a possible Pandora's box where you have businesses who just want to have pole signs that are applying for variances, where you have a very strict set of criteria that they all, 4 different pieces of criteria that they all have to meet in order to be able to legally be granted a variance. And I think you could possibly be put in a situation where you have requests that actually don't meet that standard. But if that's the pleasure of the board, I ultimately wanted to put it in a position where you guys could make the decision. If you want to pole signs, they can be put back in there. But what you currently have is a version without.
So if we were, the way this ordinance reads is that if there's 50% damage to the sign, then it has to be replaced by a ground sign, a monument sign.
That is correct.
All right, so that means, let's say we had just the worst case scenario, a hurricane comes through and takes out all of the pole signs on Main Street. I look at that as, you know, as I look to try to see how many we have and how many are those that are professionally made.
Yes.
Which meets one criteria, is they're professionally made. And certain locations, how do you put in the way if we had been smart long time ago and developed our streets and corridors so that this would work on every one, but you look at all the places where these ground signs are going to mean they're going to impede traffic because you can't see around them. I tried to look and figure where could you replace the signs if you had to replace them, and I think it's going to be a nightmare. And I think if you don't have something in there, if nothing more for these signs that are already here, that if by some chance they're damaged, that they can be put back as they are, which is a professional sign. I don't see this as a variance for those that are coming in, because if you know on the front end that you've got to have a ground sign, you'll do that. But I think it's for all of those signs that are already out there that would have to start conforming. And that's just my concern. Yeah. And I have that concern because the number of signs that are already, even our historical monument signs, historical district signs are out. You know, they don't work. They're grandfathered in.
Yes.
But if they get damaged, they're going to have to be replaced. And they're replaced with some type of ground sign. Yes, ma'am.
They're considered street signs, I believe. The historical signs are considered street signs. They're not considered a pole sign.
Well, I mean, I think the ordinance defines them as freestanding signs.
But they're actually a information-based, like a street sign. They actually go under a different category.
No.
No, they don't.
I mean, basically, we have freestanding signs are defined as a sign that's basically not attached to a building. You have freestanding signs and wall signs. A ground sign and a pole sign are types of.
My one question to you, though, is on going from 8 square feet to 16 square feet.
Yes.
That's a lot bigger. And I know that was something here, but I thought we were going to maybe designate that for large tracts of land, maybe.
Real estate.
Rather than having them in front of.
Temporary real estate signs were an area we didn't make any changes to at all. I was just responding to something that Mr. Riddle highlighted in his letter that we received for our last work session, when he basically highlighted having an issue with the current signs of real estate signs, which is, again, were not signs that we actually made changes to at all. I just felt that.
What size are his? His are very large.
I'm not talking about the signs that he currently has. I'm just talking about what's allowable in the ordinance. Right. 16 square feet is basically 4x4. So I felt that wasn't that big of an increase to address what he was saying with respect to just real estate signs. I didn't feel that a jump from 8 square feet to 16
I think that's large for a single business, but I could understand for like a large tract of land where they might want to advertise, for instance, the one at the corner of Camden and Rockfish Road, the field.
So are you making
understand that would be something that.
Are you making a distinction between advertising real estate on a vacant lot versus advertising a tenant that's open on a shopping center or something to that effect?
I mean, I think that's a big sign. That's my campaign sign. That's big. That's a big sign.
Campaign signs are allowed to be 32 square feet.
I know,
so,
but I'm saying that's big. 16 square feet is big, I think. No?
Based on my opinion, 32 square foot sign is about 8x4. A 16 square foot sign is 4x4. I did not think based on just temporary real estate signs at 8 square feet, a jump to 16 wasn't that big of a jump. But again,
say Taco Bell becomes vacant, you're saying that they can have that big sign in front of Taco Bell?
that is correct.
That's big. I mean, that's big. That's a big sign. That's what I was saying, like the large tracts of land I can understand, but I can understand the 8 square feet, say for a single business but a shopping strip or acreage that's for sale, I can understand that being 16, but I mean, that's a big sign to be sitting right in front of Taco Bell or McDonald's or something that went out of business on Main Street. My opinion, I think.
And also to respond to what the mayor was saying as well, with respect to this change, if it is what the board ultimately moves forward with, in the event some situation where a significant amount of these signs are damaged, I think the last conversation we had was why we increased the duration of time to comply with the new sign would be 6 months. Now, I do agree, we do not have, I don't think there's any way to address what you're saying without having a reversal to putting pole signs back in there. I think that's what was so difficult. I do not think there's a way to take a hardline stance on two-tiered approaches with monument ground signs outright and have pole signs entertained. I think you're going to have a situation where some concessions are going to have to be made with pole signs, or just a hard decision on moving forward without them. I do think there was one section that we found in the ordinance that allows for unlimited height and square footage regulations within 1,500 feet of the freeway, but I do not think that addresses the issue. So what that would do, if we put pole signs in there, you would just only be allowed to put pole signs by the freeway. That doesn't address the issue along Main Street. So I do think just in general, in the event that if this does move forward, you're probably not going to see a comprehensive change outright. I mean, if you look at some of these businesses, they've probably been there 10 to 15 years. So you would have to have a change out of all of them to see an entire corridor of Main Street changing to monument signs, but I do agree with that. There are some concerns either way. If you take pole signs out, you're going to have some pushback from the development community. If you try to figure out how to keep them in, you got to try to figure out that consistency in terms of uniformity, in terms of professional sign companies and things of that nature. But we went back and forth so many times, I just felt that we need to make a decision one way or the other.
Madam Mayor, make a motion, we approve the sign ordinances proposed. Rome won't built in a day. We got to get something in place. We'll know if it's problematic, either this board or a future board, and changes can be made. But we have to have some kind of standards in place, and this is a good place to start.
And I will.
We've been through this, 8 times in a year?
7.
This
is
changes
8.
to the new one that was done last year.
Yeah. And I will say this does have to go to planning board, and it does have to come back to us for adoption. So if there's some tweaks that need to be made, we can. But I just felt comfortable moving forward with the version that you currently have, giving you guys a decision, the opportunity to make a decision.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, sir.
All right, Chancellor. First off, I like the bow tie.
Oh, thanks.
I think we're getting there. Now, work with me. You may, and Betty may have to help you, but I don't know. We'll see. 90% of the signs in Hope Mills are pole signs. Am I right? Building signs.
Yes, probably. Very close.
Pole signs.
Yeah.
Handwritten signs. I mean, 90% of them. And we're going to grandfather them in with this ordinance.
That's correct.
All 90% of them.
That's correct.
Okay. And we're going to go forward with monument signs, ground signs.
If approved. That's correct.
Yep, that's the direction. That's what we want to do. Well, and the direction where we're going is where we need to be going. But when you've got a community that's 90% of one type of sign, and you're going to grandfather them in, there has to be a way in this ordinance, I think, that you're going to have to address those until they're all changed out. Now, where I'm going with this is, a business will have to replace a pole sign if it's damaged more than 50%.
Or if it's out of operation for 12
Yeah.
consecutive months. Correct.
All right. And is there locations in our community that can only be replaced by the existing pole sign that's there right now?
Not right off the top of my head.
That's a tough question because if well, let me see how you're going to answer.
I think what you're asking is, are there sites that are so unique that if that sign was damaged or if it lost its grandfather status, that because of the unique shape, size, and topography of that lot, they wouldn't be able to put a monument sign back? Right. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
I do think if that were the case, that would dramatically reduce that number of the 90% down significantly. I do not think that you have a large percentage of properties along Main Street out of that 90% that situation exists. So I do think regardless of what change you make to an ordinance, you're going to have one or two outliers that you may not be able to address. But based on that scenario, I do not anticipate that would be a significant amount of properties.
Yeah, well, I want to make sure now, because what recourse do they have if they can't apply for a variance? What recourse does that business owner have?
Comply with a ground sign.
I mean, okay, he can't put up a monument, he or she, the business owner can't put up a monument sign because of the geographical location. So that's out. Okay, so how do they replace their sign on their business? Is it building? They can't get a variance because we took it out of the ordinance.
The only thing I would say to that is that's ultimately what we're weighing when we contemplate this language. We're weighing scenarios like that versus how many of them would actually be a viable candidate for a variance. but you're also actually weighing the fact that in your ordinance, all businesses are allowed two signs. You're allowed a wall sign that has a 2-to-1 ratio or 1-to-1 ratio based on the zoning classification, and you're allowed a freestanding sign. There are some situations where, like, for instance, when you have a Verizon, that's a perfect candidate, slopes down very drastically from Main Street, but because it's a corner lot, they're allotted 2 signs. So there are concessions that are already in the language that allow for additional signage in the event that you have. If you have a shopping center where you have 10 units, each of the 2 end units are allowed a sign on the front and on the side. The individual units don't. So you do have situations where sometimes when you have unique situations that you are allowed some leniency in the sign ordinance. But I'm not aware of language that I can put back in. Again, I would very seriously caution about opening a door in our ordinance that says if you don't like the monument signs, apply for a variance. Now, you have situations where you may have a legitimate topographical issue with a property, but based on the day-to-day operation of what we see, that's probably going to be very minimal, and you're probably going to see a significant amount of developers who are just saying, I need to have me a pole sign. And I think that puts an extra burden on the board when you have 4 criterion that you have to meet. That variance has to have a 3/4 vote.
Right.
It's a quasi-judicial proceeding. Right. So that's going to be very, very challenging if you have a tremendous influx of these types of requests where you may not have a legitimate standard that's meeting those 4 criterion. For a variance in terms of topography, in terms of self-imposed hardships and things of that nature.
Well, I'm in agreement that the future is monument signs. I believe, and I believe that's probably the consensus of this board. I'm not sure. I know it is with me, but I don't want to leave behind the 90% that's in existence now.
And trust, I'm not saying these things in support or in opposition
Right.
of ground or pole signs. I'm saying that typically, if you're making a change that's pretty sweeping in an ordinance, that's essentially what your not legally non-conforming status language is for. In the event that there's a change that is made in a set of regulations that automatically makes a situation, a property or a business legally non-conforming, I think those 2 aspects of the grandfather clause are the protections that are in place for those situations you're talking about. The 90% of the businesses, I think if we went with the amortization that we initially had way back when, that's when you're getting a little aggressive. But I think with us extending the period of compliance to almost 6 months, I think that in addition to them having their grandfather status, which essentially means that they're basically allowed to continue to operate until that happens, I think those are the systems of checks and balances and controls that should address those issues, understanding that there are going to be outliers where you may have 1 or 2 unique cases.
Yeah, and they are. It's not going to be the norm. I mean, we're not going to have a tremendous amount, but I'm always looking at the 1 or the 2 business owners who have their operations open from week to week. You know, we're going forward with monuments, and businesses like McDonald's don't have that kind of issue, but small business owners do when you're trying to make payroll, from week to week, month to month. And that's the only reason I asked that. I just wanted to make doggone sure we were protecting everybody and not just a select few.
I agree.
Madam Mayor, call for the vote.
Any further discussion? All those,
Is that-
yes, sir?
Your motion is to send it back to the county?
Yeah, to approve, the motion is to approve what we have before us. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, be 4-1. Thank you, sir.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
I could put on record why I voted no, is that I feel that the pole sign should be written in there, so it'd be in our ordinance in case somebody did come in for a variance, it would be there.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
I'll just stay up.
Okay, next we have new business. We have a non-public hearing. This is case number 19-012. Consideration of the Traymore Village Common Area and Lot 105 Traymore at Lakewood, Section 3, Zero Lot Line Subdivision Review. Hope Mills Subdivision Ordinance Zone R10 and mixed CUD acreage 6.99 plus or minus acres located at 2805 Meadowmont Lane. Submitted by William M. and Angela V. Wright, developer, and Larry King and Associate Surveyor.
This should be pretty cut and dry. The only reason why this is before you this evening is because Lot 105 is located in the Traymore at Lakewood neighborhood that is outside of town limits. It's this square piece right to the top of this area right in here. They're actually, I think, and it's developed with a single family house. The area that is inside the town of Hope Mills is a common area that has a stormwater device on it that serves Traymore Village. So because the property in the county, lot 105, abuts this piece, I think the resident wants to put some type of accessory structure in the rear yard. So they're trying to get a zero lot line approval just for that rear property line that is common between the common area piece and the lot. And that's basically it. The only reason why it's coming to us is because the common area piece is in the town. There's no development that'll happen on the piece that's located in town limits, but because the zero lot line requires that they get that approval, they're here this evening. That's basically it.
Any questions for Mr. McLaughlin?
Motion to approve case number 19-012. Consideration to Traymore Village Common Area in Lot 105 Traymore at Lakewood, Section 3, Zero Lot Line Subdivision Review.
Okay, I have a motion. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have consideration of authorizing the town manager to negotiate a contract to engage an engineer to design a site plan for NCDOT review and approval for a driveway permit on the golf course property and an engineer design to be submitted to NCDOT. And I'll turn this over to Ms. Adams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Board of Commissioners. During the November 5th regular meeting, the board approved the opening of the former golf course property for the purpose of allowing citizens to walk and hike dusk to dawn, beginning April 30th. As part of this process, the town has to apply to NCDOT for a driveway permit. What I'm asking is, for the sake of time, that you allow me to negotiate a contract, which would be our standard town contract that's already been pre-approved by the town attorney, to engage an engineer to design a site plan for NCDOT review and approval for a driveway permit and an engineered design to be submitted to NCDOT. Now, with that, I can either do one of two things. It's completely up to the board as to how you wish to proceed. I can either negotiate the contract and you can authorize me approval to go ahead and sign it and execute it, or I can bring it back for your approval. Either way.
Do you have any ideas on how much this is going to cost?
Just a very rough estimate. It's between $10,000 to $15,000.
And then how much is it going to cost to build a driveway? Is there any kind of estimate there? No, that would have to be done after the engineered plans.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so
Question,
discussion. Yes, sir.
Do we have to have this study done before we open the golf course to any kind of use?
We don't have a driveway or
I realize
parking,
we don't have
parking.
a driveway, but do we have to have a study done to have a temporary driveway?
No, there's no study. This is just to authorize me to negotiate with the engineer to have the design and a site plan submitted. A site plan first is submitted, and then they either approve it or deny it. If they approve it, based on the site plan, then the engineer designs it. And we submit that.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
thank you. I want to make sure that we've got a clear understanding here on this driveway. So the parking lot that's there now, we have an agreement, I think, with Mr. George, that we can access the building. Is there an easement, or is there an agreement, or how can anyone from town get to the building that's on the golf course that belongs to the town currently?
I'm not aware of any written agreement. I think it's more or less maybe he just, and I don't know, maybe the police department could speak on this, because you have your surplus items that you keep over there in that building. How do you access that? Do you use Mr. George's driveway?
Sure do,
But it's kind of an unspoken, there's no formal agreement. There's no written agreement.
Okay. It's just a gentleman's agreement that town staff can go up to the building.
I believe so, sir.
Okay. I believe so too. That's the reason I'm asking that. Because, I mean, it's not blocked or roped off, there's a lot of folks that they go up there anyway. But I want to make sure now, this driveway that we're looking at do we have the input of where we want this driveway to be? When we're talking about a driveway permit and we're talking about a site plan, are we telling DOT where we want the driveway to be?
Respectfully, I don't believe that.
I think it's a temporary thing.
And I don't think we tell them where it's going to be. I think
Recommend.
Request.
that
We
we can
recommend.
request.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
But they will ultimately decide the best location. And based on preliminary discussions, we're not so sure that across from Fairway is the correct location.
Oh, I agree.
It appears
Oh, I
that it
agree.
may be further up towards Mr. George's property.
In fact, it'd be right beside his current entrance. May be the best plan to go. Yeah, that's why I just wanted to make sure. And the purpose of our driveway permit is to go up to the building, one, to establish a parking lot, and to open up the park. Am I right?
Correct.
Okay, that's the main purpose of what we're looking at with this driveway. And it's going to be a DOT engineer, and they're going to do the site plan as well? Or is the site plan on our end?
Well, no, we have to hire a separate engineer.
Okay. So it's not going to be a DOT engineer?
No, sir.
Ah, okay.
Has there been consideration for parking from that driveway? So is that going to be part of the site plan?
That would be part of the plan.
So that would be something else we have to pay for.
I got it. Okay. I'm glad I asked that.
The parking would be included in the
Yeah, it's
in the design.
In the design, yeah. Yeah.
Or would the board like to cap the town manager's authorization at a certain number before she'd have to bring it back to us? Say $15,000 or something like that? And if the estimate comes in higher, then it would come back before us?
I think that's good.
Would that be good?
Good for me.
Would 15,000 be a good threshold, town manager Adams?
Yeah, we're taking a stab at it, but yeah, that's perfectly fine.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I'd rather go with 25. Get a little more latitude there.
25,000?
Yeah. I'd go with a little more latitude. I mean, we don't know what the design's going to look like, so I don't want to.
Have we thought about how much it's going to cost to build a design and how much we're going to spend on this temporary situation? I mean, has that crossed your minds that it's going to cost money? All right.
So we're talking about a site plan, a review, and a engineer design, right?
Correct.
No more than 25.
Including the parking lot.
Including the including the parking lot. No more than 25.
Are you making a motion, Commissioner Bill?
Yes, I am. But I think Don may want to weigh in.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah. Oh, we do, okay. All right. So Don is reminding me that we also have to have a survey included.
On the property?
Yeah.
Doesn't McAdams have that?
No.
No, a
No.
separate survey.
No,
would
separate.
Need to be done, and that's probably about 5,000 to 6,000.
Madam Mayor,
Well, now we're
Yes,
up to
ma'am.
20. Now we're at 25.
is there any way that we can table this until after our retreat? Budget-wise?
I want to move forward. I don't know about the rest of the board.
Would this be something else we have to come out of fund balance because we don't have it budgeted anywhere else?
More than likely. Depends on how our funds come in for the year, but
Do we save any money not having a Parks and Rec director for several months? Is that enough money to get it done?
Madam Mayor, I'm going to go ahead and make the motion for 25,000. Authorize the town manager to execute a contract.
Have a motion
Include the
to,
survey cost?
Yes.
survey.
It includes
survey,
engineer
okay.
to design a site plan for NCDOT review and approval for the driveway permit with the survey. That's the motion, Mayor.
any other discussion?
This will be in
sir.
coordination with the NCDOT will give us their blessing that this is where they want this entrance, right? Okay, I'm good.
And further with that motion too, I don't want the contract to come back to us, just authorize the town manager to go ahead and execute. Let's go with it. Because then we're looking at 2 more weeks or 4 more weeks.
I want to remind this board that we're still up in the air about whether or not we're going back with Cumberland County or not for Parks and Recreation. And is that acreage over there going to be under the jurisdiction of Cumberland County? Or is it going to be under the jurisdiction of us?
Mr. Legg, the golf course belongs to the taxpayer citizens of Hope Mills.
Well, so does this property out here, but it would be under
Anything that's
the,
labeled parks
Yeah.
would go
That's who it
to
belongs
Parks and
to.
Rec.
Either way, because we're still
just a question.
collecting, yeah.
Call for the vote, Mayor?
Yeah, he wants to
Wait a
speak.
minute, I think Don wants
yeah,
to
I think.
address us.
I'm sorry.
I may have to make an amendment to the motion.
Yes, sir.
I want to make sure I got it right, Don.
Let's not put that cart before the horse on the parking lot itself, because if it needs to go out for a bid, and if the bid process dictates it, whether it's a informal or formal bid, so we want to follow the proper rules for that, sir.
Yeah, but the site plan would include the parking lot.
No, sir, I'm talking about the actual, you're talking about doing the contract for the parking lot after everything's done, was my understanding. Right now, you've got a two-part
I
process.
don't think
No.
not the actual work.
No,
Yeah,
we're not
just
doing the
to
actual
Engineer
work.
the design.
Just the design plan,
Okay.
Don.
Yeah.
Just
Yep.
the design.
Okay, my misunderstanding, sir.
Yeah, that's all it is. I'm with you, man.
All right, I have a motion on the floor, and that is to authorize the manager to spend up to $25,000 to design a site plan and hire an engineer to design a site plan and then get approval permit for a golf course and engineer design to be submitted to DOT along with a survey. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, be 4-1. Next, we have the item that was added by Commissioner Legg, and that is consideration or discussion about the Parks and Rec merging. So I turn it over to Commissioner Legg at this time.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to discuss whether or not this board was interested at all in merging back with the Cumberland County, City of Fayetteville Parks and Recreation. We had speakers here tonight that spoke against that because of the rich tradition of our athletic programs. Right now, we're spending literally thousands of dollars at Briar Park doing the handicap access for people to get in there. Plus, they're talking about redoing the parking lot over there. Now we're talking about all this money for the golf course. How much of this land will be under our jurisdiction? So I'd just like to to more or less make a motion that we don't go with Cumberland County Parks and Recreation. I've talked with some people down there, and you don't have to take my word for it, but I'm just, and they don't see why we want to come back. We lose all the tax revenue that we get now, which is over $500,000. We do supplement the Parks and Recreation budget from time to time, and that's because we put so much stuff on them. I thought you were going to say a while ago that we do this out of Parks and Recreation budget, what we just decided about the study for the driveway and parking. I thought you were going to say that was going to come out of their budget. But we throw stuff at them all the time that are curveballs that we don't add into their budget. 20,000 here, 20,000 there, beauty pageants, parades, special events. So I think we would be better off, I'm convinced we'd be better off stay just as we are right now. We're even in the process of trying to do something about someone to lead our Parks and Recreation program. We can't do anything about that now because we don't know how big a staff we're going to have. Someone we have now may fit that description of what we got to have. So I'm open for discussion, Madam Mayor, if you don't mind.
Okay, does someone want to, I think you did make a motion.
Well, I will make that a motion that
All right,
we
so-
discontinue our process to join back with Cumberland County Fayetteville Parks and Recreation.
Okay, so discussion, anyone want to open up first? Anybody got some thoughts?
Madam Mayor, just say
Yes,
that,
sir.
I mean, it'd be a long shot anyways, but it's kind of like a client coming to me and saying, Michael, I want to open up a new business. And they give me about a third of the facts without a business plan. And I haven't seen any modeling, any serious discussions. And I'm not saying that's the right way to go by any means. I'm very proud of our Parks and Rec department, and we are getting ready to hire. If we haven't hired a new Parks and Rec director already, I think we're getting ready to, and we support the town manager in that decision. So I don't know that, I don't know that I'm ready to make that decision tonight, but at the same token, I'm not ready to make a decision to join Cumberland County Fayetteville tomorrow, next week, next month, maybe even during the course of this term. But I still don't think all we're given is just a basic general scenario. And I appreciate Mr. Jackson coming out and talking to us, but there was no modeling given. There's just no meat and potatoes in that dinner. And you can't make an informed decision without having all the facts presented to you. And as far as I know, this board doesn't make hasty decisions, and we do our research. And it would be a long shot, but I think we're here at the comprehensive plan, and we're going to hear more from McAdams, and we may move forward and keep doing what we're doing for a couple more years, another 10 years. But the fact exists that a great number of county residents use our services, and we're absorbing their costs. We appreciate them participating with us, but we don't have the resources that the county has by any means of the imagination. For instance, if there was to be a bond for, say, an aquatic center, why not have all the county residents participate in that rather than just Hope Mills residents? I'm sure that Southwest Cumberland County would use a nice facility like that. It's much easier to spread that out over 200,000 citizens than 17,000 citizens. you might talk about a penny increase in your taxes versus 20-cent increase in your taxes to have a nice aquatic center. So those are the things that we struggle with, being we're not Spring Lake. I mean, Spring Lake has a high tax rate because they just frankly don't have enough citizens to spread revenue base amongst all their overhead. And we've got plenty of land, but we don't have any answers on how we can manage those properties. We don't have any answers on how we can cover the overhead. Even if we put nice facilities in there tomorrow, we're gonna have to come up with some serious planning and other revenue sources if we do it ourselves, of course. So I'm not saying that I'm not for us staying independent, but I'm also not for killing the discussions with Fayetteville, Cumberland County tonight when it, to me, would be premature. That's just my 2 cents.
Mayor Warner?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm gonna give my 3 cents. I'll do 1 cent more than you. Like I said before, I love Hope Mills, and I think that we're really moving ahead, and I don't even need to even consider any more talks with Fayetteville or Cumberland County about merging with them as far as our Parks and Rec. I feel that we need to keep what we have in Hope Mills and get with our citizens and see what we can do to improve it. There's so many possibilities for us to do rather than going with Cumberland County or Fayetteville. And I mean, I just think it's going to be a waste of time and energy and probably money to even discuss it any further because, and I might be wrong, but I think Parks and Rec needs to stay in Hope Mills. So I agree with Jerry.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I think all that we've had here has just been discussion about it. I mean, I don't think there's ever been a direction that we were going to go that way. I think it's always been a discussion about rejoining or joining the program. I don't know how many times during a week I'll have folks tell me that one of the reasons that they live in Hope Mills or retired in Hope Mills to raise their families is because of the parks and the rec program that we have in a small town atmosphere. That's what they say.
Hope Mills.
That's what they say.
That's right.
And I mean, they tell me this all the time. I mean, I was just on a golf course here about a couple of weeks ago, and there's families out there. They look at that golf course, and you know what they say? Don't tear it up.
Dream.
Don't tear up the ground. That's what they tell me. And I think all we've actually been doing is just a discussion. There's been no decision made at all. I mean, we're waiting on the final comprehensive plan to come back. At best. And all that's been has just been some discussion. Even with Assistant Manager Jackson tonight coming in, I mean, this was just more or less an overview. I mean, I have great respect for him, but it just appeared to me that there was a lot of unanswered questions. I think we got a good gig here in Hope Mills. I'll tell you. I'll be honest with you. I think we do. A lot of folks tell me that. We got a doggone good gig here. We just need to be more visionary of where we want this to go. Like the golf course, we've got a huge piece of property out there that is the future of this community. It truly is. We've invested a ton of money into bringing back the lake, the centerpiece of this community. We've got ball teams here. We've got youth association, second to none on advancing our youth. That's the good. Now the bad, or the ugly in a way. We got to get smart about how we spend taxpayer dollars, and that's a challenge for this board. It truly is. We got to get smart about how we do that, and then provide the services that our taxpayers are looking for and our residents are looking for. That's just how I feel about it. I'm like Mayor Pro Tem. I don't think it's a motion. I don't think that's where we are. I just think we've just been having discussions about it. And they may continue on until we see what the final recommendations are from the McAdams group. They're still putting stuff together. They may walk in here and say, look, this is the way you go, or this is the way you go. But nonetheless, if we keep it, Commissioner Legg, it's got to have some work done to it. Our residents tell us that.
They're doing that now. They're putting in ADA stuff at Briar Park. They worked on, as you know, field 4, 5, and 6 area last year for paid parking. Paid parking back over here. We can't move forward and know that it's our money we spend until this is decided. Because as it is now, no matter what the McAdams group comes back with, we can't move forward unless we give it operation of it to the county or city, and we need to move forward with the Parks and Rec director. All this is just holding us back, and we're not gaining any momentum. And you are right, we have one of the best youth programs in the southeastern part of the United States. If you went to Louisiana today and say, where you from? Oh, I'm from Hope Mills. Oh, yeah, man, they got a baseball program. It's unbelievable. That's how Hope Mills is respected. I had boys come here and play ball for me that their dad would call me before they left Japan to find out where they had to live in order for their kids to play in this program. That's been several years ago, but it still happened. So, and we got people coming all over the country for their kids to play in our program. And I don't want to give it away, be almost like giving the Lake Bed number 2 or the golf course away. I just don't want to give it away.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I'm not ready to make the decision. I still want to collect information from all avenues, and I'm not ready to nix them out of it yet, so.
Commissioner Legg,
as we collect information, I just think it's important that we just keep collecting until we're ready to expand or to move forward with anything. So I don't know if it's responsible just to say, that we're not interested in it when we don't even know which direction we're going yet.
One comment, and that would be that we do have, and I understand we've interviewed for our Parks and Rec director position, and I do believe that's a position that we should move forward on while we've got qualified people that are there. Even if we were to do any type of merger, we still have the programs to run right now. And we've got the position there and available. And the other thing is, this board has been so uptight about giving anything away. They wouldn't give away something because it was bad property. They wouldn't give away something for whatever it's going to cost the citizens. And right now, you're giving away our Parks and Rec if you go back under Fayetteville-Coleman County, because you don't understand that then we become part of the big, you submit a program and you might get it paid for. And they do the maintenance, and they might do a good job or they might not. It just depends on who's doing the maintenance for them. I don't think the reason why, and I was here when we became Hope Mills Parks and Rec. And the reason for doing that was because we were stronger than all the other small towns, and we were as good or better than Cumberland County as far as our Parks and Rec. And then we did negotiate, and we got monies to help pay for that building next door, and we would be a standalone department. We would do our own thing. And I think we've done an excellent job over the years. I've been involved in Parks and Rec prior to ever being involved in Hope Mills politics. My children started at the age 4 and all the way through. And I can tell you that it's just no different for now than it was then. This is the place people come because of our parks program. And I can't see saying I'm a part of Fayetteville-Coleman County because if you listen closely, there's lots of concerns right now about being part of Fayetteville-Cumberland County, especially with the tremendous amount of money that they are going to have to come up with. Just read the paper this past week. And it would be nice for them to get our $500,000 if that's how much we collect to add to their coffers. I don't see it as a wise financial decision. I am concerned, but we do have a motion on the floor unless Commissioner Legg would like to change that since you don't know the outcome of that motion.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Legg, could you wait with your motion until after the comprehensive plan's been presented? Could you just allow that, or even after the retreat?
How's it gonna affect our hiring and staffing? As far as a director or group leaders or whatever you have to have? If we make a decision tonight or later.
I don't think it would, because we're not making a decision to change anything.
We're just.
I think you still
Then
need to go ahead and hire someone.
Well, I think our
regardless of
town
what
manager, though, has been reluctant to hire. And the
I
reason
have.
for being that reluctant is because of the unsure of what's gonna happen to staff if this decision is made. So if we're not gonna do anything right now, then I think we should proceed with hiring the staff that we've got budgeted. The money's there. And it's not having to come out of anywhere but regular budget.
Well, as I told Town Manager Adams, I'm fully support her decision to hire a new Parks and Rec director. Let's see where it goes. But the problem still exists that we don't have much money, neither does the county. So you know, if we want to have more amenities, it's got to come from somewhere. And we would be closed-minded to just shut this off tonight and not think about it anymore. And like I said, it may not even happen in our term. It may be we give it a year or two with the new Parks and Rec director, and might be a new board up here. And but I think we don't have enough information to make an intelligent decision tonight to end any discussions with Fayetteville-Cumberland County.
I just thought that's all we were doing, Mayor Pro Tem, was just discussing this.
That's
I
what I
didn't
thought.
think we were at a decision point.
We're not making any decisions.
My motion was to make a decision,
Okay.
and here's part of the reason why. We can't lead the McAdams group any further than they are now. If they bring a recommendation back to us that we like, tough break.
Well, I just said, I don't know what recommendations they're gonna bring to us. That's just it. I don't know.
And is the county gonna give us all the money it takes to develop that golf course the way it's drawn up now?
No.
Oh, that, I don't know.
We don't know anything because we haven't negotiated anything because we haven't been to the table with them, to be honest.
And we
You don't
haven't
know
agreed on the
anything 'cause
plan
we
that's
don't- we don't-
what's drawn up. We haven't
We haven't
agreed
had a
on.
conversation.
Even McAdams may be reluctant to.
When you
Move
negotiate
forward with
something, you
us.
set forth stipulations of what your expectations are, and if those expectations can't be met, and if it's not a win-win situation, you can and say, move on.
We've come this far. I just think we should wait until the comprehensive plan is presented. That's all I'm asking. Just wait until the plan's presented. Make your motion then. We'd have a better understanding then. I mean, unless this is going to stop hiring, unless this is going to stop hiring a Parks and Rec director. Is
Well, I
that
know
where
it's
we
slowed-
are?
I know it's slowed it down.
Is that where we are? Is that the real discussion here?
No.
That was not my understanding. I thought we were moving forward.
I've been a little reluctant to do that because of the uncertainty.
Well, Commissioner Larson and I said to move forward in our meeting with you. Who's reluctant?
No, the reluctant because of the uncertainty of the discussion and not knowing which way.
We have a lot of uncertainties. We got 6 exchanges getting ready to come in from 295. We may have a massive explosion of Hope Mills, and we may double in citizenship in 10 years, and we can have all the amenities we want. Or maybe we won't have the growth. We don't know. It's all unknown. But we don't have the money in the budget to expand our programs right now.
Madam Mayor, my motion was not whether to or not
Just to
vote it down. I just made a motion to cease our ideas of joining Cumberland County Parks and Recreation. Does that make
Stop
sense?
discussion, is that what it is? You just want to stop
I want
discussion
to
about it?
stop the discussion with
Okay.
them so we can move forward with the stuff we gotta do here.
I can't do that. I can't support that.
It'd be premature for me.
So I'm gonna
Okay.
jump out on a limb and
All
ask
right,
for the vote.
we have our motion. All those in favor of Commissioner Legg's motion, if you'd raise your hand, right hand. That's 2. All those opposed, 3.
We're not there.
Okay. Okay, at this time, we have our manager's report.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor, Board of Commissioners. Update to the Lake Bed Bulkhead Project. A pre-construction meeting with M&E Construction is scheduled for Wednesday, February the 20th. Johnson Street sidewalk. The sidewalk plans are currently being reviewed by PWC. The Lake Concession Stand, Brower Park, Big T's, and Herring Park roofing. Brower and Herring Park's schedule for repairs was interrupted due to weather, so dates for that repair work to be announced or to be determined. Rockfish Road sidewalk, the CAD files or computer drawings have been sent to the contractor. They are rescheduling a resurvey to pick up the DOT changes, and they are developing a new project schedule which is expected by March the 4th. The Walmart stormwater ponds, all requested work has been completed, and we're currently waiting to receive the as-bills. Trade Street Museum project, designed to build architecture drawings, have been reviewed by the Historic Preservation Commission. The Historic Preservation Commission has requested minor changes to work out with the architect and gutting of kitchen for display. Fountain Lane House, we're still waiting on the hazardous material mitigation quote before we can move on with that. ADA transition program, staff met recently with representatives of Stewart Incorporated. They are working on developing a scope of work to assist with establishing a self-evaluation and a transition plan. Former golf course property, staff has completed the earthenwork for the washout repairs to the cart paths. Date to be determined for the asphalt repairs. Storm debris clearing, the contractor portion has been completed, and the remainder, with the excessive dirt accumulation, is to be removed by staff and then area cleaned up and then deactivation to follow. And that is my manager's report.
Okay. A reminder that we do have a meeting tomorrow at 5:30, same place. And then we also have the meeting on the town and state dinner meeting in Raleigh on Wednesday. And then the committee meetings that are listed there. Then our regular meeting will be back March 4th. At this time, do we have any staff comments?
Sorry for all the coughing.
Okay. All right. Any official comments?
I'd just like to thank everyone who was here tonight. Everyone that spoke. And you have to excuse me, I'm getting a kind of sore throat, so you'll probably want to get me out of here. So that'd be all. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Anyone else?
I have a question.
Okay.
Do we move the Parks and Rec back to the Monday? The original scheduled Monday,
Yes.
Maxie? Yeah, back to regular Parks and Rec date?
Yes.
Okay.
We never changed it because we were waiting for
Okay.
everyone to decide.
Okay. Any other official comments? If not, do we have a motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor, make a motion to conduct a closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A6 to discuss personnel matters.
Have a motion. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed, we'll be moving to the front conference room at this time. We beg your patience. We'll be back as quick as possible. Okay, this time I'll call our meeting back to order.
Such time as the release of the information without the frustrating purpose of the closed session, or no action was taken.
Have a motion. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I have a motion pursuant to our rules of procedure. Motion 14 to reconsider. I'd like to make a motion that we end discussion with Fayetteville, Cumberland County, Recreation, I guess, Department.
Procedurally, I think you just moved to reconsider Commissioner Legg's motion.
And reconsider Commissioner Legg's original motion.
Okay, I have a motion to reconsider Commissioner Legg's motion. All those in favor of Commissioner Legg's motion signify by raising your right hand. We have 3. All those opposed, 2. So it changes the outcome 3 to 2, so discussions will cease.
Let's move forward.
Yes, move forward.
Adjourn.
Okay, motion to adjourn.